This wealthy young man is a troublemaker, but he has a passion for impersonating a police officer to uphold justice. That day, after finishing a real shooting game as a police officer, he rented an entire nightclub to celebrate his victory. Outside, Insu discovered a friend using illegal substances. Despite being a wealthy heir, Insu still lives by his principles. He never touches anything that violates the law. Meanwhile, Insu's older brother Sungju, the vice president of the corporation, called to ask why his younger brother wasn't at the meeting that day. The two brothers are close and understand each other well, so after a few sentences, Sungju guessed that his younger brother was partying again. Insu didn't hide it. Sungju told Insu to hurry home because they had an important press conference that evening. Their father would be announcing some important news today. Insu knew he needed to stop, so he promised his brother he'd be home immediately. But as soon as Insu hung up and turned around, he saw his friend, who had just used drugs, borrowing a lighter from a man on the street. Insu approached and called out to his friend, but the man, seeing Insu in his police uniform, became enraged. He even pulled out a knife and lunged at Insu's friend. Clearly, the man thought Insu was a real police officer, while he was only wearing the uniform for a game. When his friend was stabbed, Insu didn't hesitate and immediately chased after the attacker. Although the man was holding a knife, Insu wasn't afraid because he had learned martial arts. With just a few simple movements, Insu easily subdued the attacker. The man refused to give up and still tried to fight. Insu with a knife. Insu bit the man's wrist, then quickly snatched the knife and knocked him down. While Insu was checking his wound, a female police officer suddenly rushed in and kicked him away. She then subdued Insu and removed the game logo from his fake uniform. Finally, the female officer arrested Insu on the spot for violent crime. This female officer, named Jang Hun, was a member of the local police department's serious crime unit. A few hours earlier, Jang Hyun had used a taser to apprehend a murderer. She had then interrogated him about his accomplices. While Insu and his friends were enjoying themselves at a nightclub, Jang Hyun and her team lay in ambush. However, they waited all night, but the murderer's accomplices did not appear. When Insu happened to approach the area, he was immediately handcuffed and taken to the police station. After the investigation, subordinates reported to Jang Hyun that Insu was the youngest son of a large corporation. Insu not only possessed immense wealth, but was also a famous figure on social media. He liked to post all kinds of pictures online, from photos with famous chefs to sports stars, as well as videos of him participating in races and flipping his car on the track. In short, Insu was a wealthy man who couldn't sit still. He was always looking for attention. Jang Hyun realized she had caused trouble. Her superior, fearing repercussions, ordered her to release Insu immediately. However, Jang Hyun refused. Jang Hyun mistakenly believed that Insu had attacked a passerby simply because he was drunk, so she wanted to proceed with the investigation and trial according to procedure. When confronted by the female police officer, Insu showed no signs of panic. He calmly presented the criminal laws. Insu accused Jang Hyun of abuse of power. Upon reviewing the information, Jang Hyun discovered that Insu actually had a lawyer's license. As an experienced police officer, Jang Hyun was not intimidated by Insu's confident demeanor. To her, he was just another wealthy heir who liked to cause trouble. Jang Hyun declared that this time she would definitely prosecute Tai. Insu defended himself, claiming he was acting in legitimate self-defense to protect his friends and that the person he attacked was carrying a knife. However, Jang Hyun did not believe his defense, as she found no weapon at the scene. Furthermore, Jang Hyun was not the type of weak-willed police officer, so she was not intimidated by the power of the wealthy. Finally, Insu called his injured friend, hoping he could prove his innocence. Unexpectedly, to cover up his drug-related crimes, his friend lied, saying nothing had happened. Jang Hyun proudly suggested that Insu should hire a good lawyer, but Insu insisted he was innocent and didn't need one. That evening, Insu was taken to prison. At the guard's request, he had to hand over his phone and remove his shoes. He mentally prepared himself for jail. Before going to prison, Insu even asked the guard to buy him an American-style iced coffee. He offered coffee to all the other inmates. The guard glanced at him and then pushed Insu inside. This was the first time this young master had been in prison. The place was filled with people from all walks of life. Vomit on the floor and chewing gum stuck to the railings. All of this was unbearable for Insu, who was accustomed to a life of luxury. While Insu was complaining about his situation, his father, the chairman of the corporation, was holding a press conference. He announced his candidacy for mayor. This news immediately attracted media attention. Chairman Jin answered reporters' questions fluently. However, a reporter unexpectedly asked if Chairman Jin knew his youngest son was being held by the police. News of Insu's disruptive behavior was widely reported in the press. After reporters discovered this news, Chairman Jin's press conference was overshadowed by the scandal. The next morning, morning, In-soo complained to the butler about Jong-hyun punching him and breaking his nose. Unexpectedly, In-soo's father actually visited his son in prison, and there, he slapped him. If it weren't for In-soo's troublemaking, Chairman Jin's press conference could have ended perfectly. Chairman Jin angrily fired In-soo from his position in the corporation. He even threatened to sever their father-son relationship. Sung-ju saw through his younger brother's thoughts. In-soo had caused trouble, but he didn't contact his family because he was afraid of ruining their father's press conference. Sung-ju promised to speak well of In-soo in front of their father. Only in front of his older brother did In-soo reveal his grievances. In-soo hadn't caused any trouble and hadn't done anything wrong. Jong-hyun also pondered In-soo's words. To avoid harming an innocent person, Jong-hyun decided to reinvestigate. As a result, she not only found fingerprints at the scene, but she also realized that the man In-soo had assaulted had injuries that matched the characteristics of the killer she was pursuing. After Jong-hyun entered the man's fingerprints, she confirmed that he was the culprit she hadn't caught the previous night. Jong-hyun bravely reported the incident to her superiors and planned to truthfully announce the investigation results. She was willing to take responsibility. Her superiors were very worried, confused, because the criminal whom the police had been pursuing for months had finally been caught by a young heir of a conglomerate. If this truth were revealed, the police force would likely become a laughingstock. While the entire police station was worried, Sung-ju and his subordinates arrived at the station. He came up with a perfect solution for the police force. This solution not only saved the police's reputation, but could also reverse Chairman Jin's image in the election. After Sung-ju finished discussing with the police, he visited his younger brother. When In-soo knew that the person his brother had apprehended was a murderer, he felt a little proud. He wondered if he would receive an award for bravery from the police station. Sung-ju gently said that not only that, but from now on, In-soo would become one of the police officers there. This was the brilliant solution Sung-ju had devised. The plan was to announce to the public that In-soo had become a police officer. Through a special recruitment program for lawyers, In-soo had participated in the arrest operation 2 months prior. However, due to the confidential nature of the operation, In-soo's police identity had not yet been revealed. Thus, the police force would not only maintain its prestige, but In-soo's father, who was planning to run for office, would also have the opportunity to improve his image thanks to his son being a police officer. In-soo disagreed with the decision, arguing that with his powerful family background, he didn't need to work for the government. However, Sung-ju tried to persuade his younger brother. Sung-ju emphasized that the mayoral election was very important to their father, and that In-soo should just view this job as a police game he enjoyed. Under the arrangement of his superiors, Jong-hyun had no choice but to accept. Ultimately, Jong-hyun was forced to hold a press conference and lie to the entire nation. Jong-hyun's colleagues were delighted to have a wealthy young man join their team. This would surely be interesting. However, Jong-hyun only hoped that In-soo wasn't actually coming to work. By nearly noon the next day, In-soo still hadn't arrived at the police station to report. This somewhat reassured Jong-hyun, but unexpectedly, music suddenly blared from downstairs at the police station. People quickly rolled out a red carpet and reporters flocked there. His superiors even asked Jong-hyun to come down and help. It seemed like a big event was about to take place. When Jang-hyun went downstairs, she discovered that her superiors had instructed her to wear a padded police uniform to greet the guests. Jang absolutely disliked this, and she had a bad feeling from the start. Sure enough, an expensive car sped up, and the person who got out was In-soo in his police uniform. In-soo waved as he walked onto the red carpet. The police chief happily applauded, and all the reporters' cameras were focused on this special police officer. Jong-hyun felt very upset and immediately took off the padded uniform. However, In-soo acted very naturally. He approached her and extended his hand, suggesting they work together from now on. Jong-hyun didn't know what to say. She could only tightly grasp the hand of the wealthy young man. It seems Jong-hyun's days ahead won't be peaceful. Despite In-soo owning numerous luxury cars and billions in assets, this wealthy heir has voluntarily become a police officer. His colleagues initially thought In-soo was just there for fun, but unexpectedly, he arrived at the police station on time and worked very seriously. As an heir who only enjoyed a life of luxury, In-soo initially didn't want to work at the police station, but Sung-ju woke In-soo up and insisted that he had to do this job, no matter what. As it concerned the corporation and their father's election, In-soo couldn't take this job lightly. However, In-soo didn't listen because his father had declared yesterday that he wanted to sever ties with his son. After Sung-ju left, the butler informed In-soo that Sung-ju was about to hold a press conference. Sung-ju would declare to the media that In-soo's arrest was a lie. At that point, Sung-ju would have to take responsibility for everything. He might even have to resign from his position as vice president. His relatives, who always wanted to seize his position, would surely be delighted. A few hours later, as Song-ju was preparing to explain to the media at a press conference, In-soo unexpectedly appeared in a police uniform. In-soo stepped onto the stage and interrupted his brother. Although In-soo was a spoiled rich kid who didn't understand the situation, he wanted to help his brother overcome his difficulties, so he decided to become a police officer. In-soo's words at the press conference were distorted by the media into the headline, "The helpless police force needs my help." This angered Jang-hyun. Just because In-soo was lucky enough to catch a criminal, he was given a band and a red carpet. Jang-hyun really didn't want to be colleagues with someone like that. But In-soo had a kind heart. In-soo is not like what the media portrays him to be. His superiors want to abuse their power, and Jang-hyun can only reluctantly cooperate with In-soo in front of the cameras. Therefore, as soon as In-soo entered the office, Jang-hyun gave him a lesson. She told him to just sit still and not bother anyone. If In-soo posted anything work-related on social media, Jang-hyun would not let him off the hook. If In-soo obstructed the investigation, he would be in big trouble. With his rebellious nature, In-soo declared he would work hard, but Jang-hyun worried that In-soo would cause problems. Jang-hyun suggested to her superiors that In-soo be transferred to internal affairs. However, this suggestion was not accepted because In-soo had proven his ability to apprehend criminals. If any incident occurred, Jang-hyun would be held responsible, as she was In-soo's team leader. Jang-hyun felt very upset. After the meeting, Jang-hyun found the office next to the police station overflowing with expensive food. Meanwhile, In-soo's butler was inviting everyone to enjoy a meal. Jang-hyun immediately ordered all staff to leave the table within 3 minutes. Then, Jang-hyun asked In-soo's butler to go home after In-soo finished clearing the table. When Jang-hyun saw In-soo playing games in the office, she immediately turned off the power. In-soo was extremely annoyed. In-soo thought that if Jang-hyun had apprehended the criminal sooner, he wouldn't have had a chance to intervene. Jang-hyun angrily punched the punching bag. Jang-hyun couldn't send In-soo home or transfer him to another department. Suddenly, Jang-hyun had an idea. Jang-hyun would make In-soo leave on his own. There was a young police officer in the station who was a fan of In-soo, so he knew everything about this young master. Jang-hyun asked the person and knew that In-soo disliked tedious tasks. Therefore, Jang-hyun employed a suitable tactic. She gave In-soo a stack of investigation reports, which were necessary for that day's work. A male police officer also disliked In-soo, so he threw her a thick police notebook. Jang-hyun was certain In-soo would give up, but when she returned to the office, she found In-soo's seat empty. Jang-hyun was extremely pleased with this. Just then, the director called Jang-hyun to his office. Jang-hyun arrived and found the director helping In-soo write an investigation report. Jang-hyun realized that if one method didn't work, she should try another. At that moment, the investigation team received a case. A 70-year-old man with dementia had gone missing. The disappearance site was vast and difficult to search. Jang-hyun volunteered to help, and she even brought In-soo along. When the two arrived at the scene, she instructed In-soo to find the old woman before sunset. In such a vast area, Jang-hyun expected In-soo to burst into tears and demand to go home. Unexpectedly, in just a moment, a convoy of motorcycles and bicycles appeared around them. All were the reinforcements In-soo had called in. As a result, while Jang-hyun was still asking local residents, one of the motorcyclists found and took the old woman home. It turned out, In-soo had posted the old woman's picture on social media, offering his designer watch as a reward for finding her. The power of money is truly immense. Jang-hyun felt very sad, but she still didn't give up on her intention to send In-soo away. When Jang-hyun discovered a dead body at the dock, she dragged In-soo to the scene again. But when it was time to leave, Jang-hyun and her colleagues got into the police car, while In-soo was forced to drive his luxury car. Knowing this was a challenge, In-soo said nothing and simply sped off. Jang-hyun secretly felt proud because the road In-soo was taking was about to be under construction. It seemed this young master would get stuck. Jang-hyun was the first to arrive at the parking lot at the dock, but she received a notice that the parking lot belonged to the ship owner and they for dairy were not allowed to drive there without permission. While Jang-hyun was wondering what to do, In-soo drove directly to the dock because he was a powerful man. Meanwhile, Jang-hyun and her colleagues had to walk there. In-soo looked extremely smug. However, Jang-hyun demanded that In-soo stay in his luxury car, forbidding him from posting any pictures of the scene on social media. But In-soo wasn't easily swayed. He drove the boat out to sea to get a closer look at the crime scene. After finishing the scene inspection, Jang-hyun called In-soo again. But this time, In-soo didn't want to listen and intended to leave work. Jang-hyun said that coming to work was optional, but whether or not to leave was the team leader's prerogative. In-soo was a member of Jang-hyun's team, so he could only obediently get into the car. On the yacht at the scene, the police discovered the body of a woman. They investigated and confirmed that the victim was a model, model. Jong-hun went to the modeling agency to investigate, and she intentionally arranged for In-soo to meet all the company's employees. She asked him to gather useful information about the victim from the company's staff. The agency's representatives knew nothing, and Jong-hun didn't get any valuable clues. On the contrary, In-soo was surrounded by female models, chatting with them. Although In-soo was a young master, he was very popular with the women. In-soo informed Jong-hyun that he had gathered a lot of information, but Jong-hyun didn't care, and even left him alone on the street to return to the police station. In-soo felt so depressed that he turned to alcohol to drown his sorrows. He felt abandoned by his team. In-soo's friends thought the problem wasn't with him. They recalled that during their school days, a group of people, out of jealousy, had deliberately made things difficult for In-soo. Perhaps his colleagues were isolating him because they feared he would steal their credit. After hearing this, In-soo felt it made sense and decided to fight back. The next day, In-soo confidently walked into the forensic department. He wanted to see the autopsy results, but when In-soo saw the model's body, a familiar feeling suddenly surged through him. Then, he felt breathless, as if he were drowning. Fortunately, this only lasted for a moment. The autopsy results showed the victim had been attacked from behind and strangled before falling into the river. The body was then pulled up and placed on the deck of the yacht. In-soo began to seriously consider the case, while Jang-hyun mocked him, suggesting he was trying to show off his status as a famous police officer. In-soo refused to back down and made a bet with Jang-hyun. If he could catch the culprit, Jang-hyun would have to acknowledge him as a real police officer. If he failed, he would automatically disappear from the police station. Jang-hyun agreed to the bet, as she didn't believe this young man was capable of catching criminals. CCTV footage from the dock showed a man and the victim boarding the yacht on the night of the murder, but after a while, only he came out. In-soo recognized the man in the surveillance camera footage. He was the young master of a media company. Jong-hyun knew this too. Fingerprints of this young master were found on a glass of wine at the crime scene. A week earlier, the victim had filmed a commercial for this company. In-soo revealed the information he had gathered. The commercial was originally intended to be filmed with a different model, but the murdered model was the replacement. The owner of the yacht was also the owner of the media company, and this person was the suspect's older brother. Jong-hyun decided to meet with this older brother to question him. However, the older brother frequently disappeared, and he had just posted a photo on social media an hour earlier. Jong-hyun and his colleagues didn't know the location in the photo, but In-soo was confident because he knew. Afterward, In-soo drove to a club where the older brother was sunbathing. Without saying a word, In-soo knocked the man down. Then, In-soo announced, "You're being arrested on suspicion of involvement in the death of model Ji-na." Meanwhile, Jong-hyun finally found the club but couldn't enter because she wasn't a member. While Jong-hyun was asking the bodyguard, In-soo was suddenly thrown outside. The man who had been beaten ordered his men to assault In-soo. Seeing this, Jang-hyun drew her weapon, and In-soo fought back. The two worked together effectively to defeat the henchmen before them. This was their first time cooperating voluntarily. When the suspect attempted to flee to the airport, In-soo immediately instructed the butler to prepare a private helicopter. He used his masterful piloting skills to pursue the suspect. When the suspect's car was right in front of them, In-soo used the helicopter's landing gear to ram into the car's windshield. The suspect accelerated in an attempt to escape. In-soo then lowered his altitude and pinned the helicopter against the car. Before this incident, In-soo and Jong-hyun were working together to track down a murderer. They wanted to find the person who killed the model on the yacht. After a fight, they defeated and apprehended the suspect, the youngest son of a large corporation. According to the suspect's confession, on the night of the murder, he only wanted to take advantage of the model, but failed, so he left afterward. The suspect suspected the second brother was the culprit because he frequently used drugs on the yacht. While the second brother was defending himself, the eldest brother also appeared. The eldest brother and his two younger brothers are half-brothers. The eldest brother watched the chaotic scene with amusement. Not only that, the mother of the two younger brothers, the second wife of Chairman Kang, rushed over and demanded to see the police chief. The mother of the eldest brother, Chairman Kang's first wife, also arrived shortly after and mocked the second wife for her lack of education. The police at the station were disturbed by the commotion caused by this family. In-soo, however, remained calm. First, In-soo videotaped the scene before him. Then, he took photos of each person individually. Because wealthy people value their reputation, they eventually had to find a way to settle things to avoid making a big fuss. Afterwards, the police arrested the two brothers on charges of murder and drug use. According to the second brother's testimony, he had indeed used drugs on the yacht that night. Meanwhile, the model unexpectedly approached him and he pushed her into the water. However, according to the police investigation, the model did not die from drowning, but was attacked from behind with a sharp weapon. Jaein suspects suspected that the model climbed out of the water after falling, and the second brother took advantage of the opportunity to attack her, but he claimed he didn't remember anything. Insoo felt something was wrong. He recalled that the yacht where the model died seemed to have scratches. Insoo suspected that the perpetrator might have killed her on another yacht, then transferred the body to the yacht where the body was found. The two yachts were traveling close together, which caused the collision. Indeed, on the yacht at the crime scene, the police found the scratches that Insoo mentioned. The following morning, Insoo did not go to work. Jong-hyun thought that the young master must have realized it would be difficult to back down. Later, the police discovered that before the victim was murdered, she had met with Chairman Kang's wife and eldest son. When questioned, the eldest son claimed he couldn't remember anything, but insisted he had a clear alibi. Chairman Kang's wife only stated that the victim had come to see her husband. The model's purpose was to use her body to advance her career through unspoken rules. Jong-hyun believed this family was definitely hiding a secret. They investigated and discovered that the model's mother had passed away 10 days earlier. When she was young, her mother had been Chairman Kang's secretary, and the victim was Chairman Kang's illegitimate daughter. Jang-hyun suspected that the model had gone to Chairman Kang's family to obtain a DNA sample, such as hair or saliva, to confirm whether she was Chairman Kang's daughter. During this time, Insoo was not idle, conducting his own investigation. He arrived at the VIP area of the hospital and discovered Chairman Kang inside. It turned out that Chairman Kang had cancer and didn't have long to live. For the past 6 months, his 3 sons had been vying for the succession and the enormous fortune. Insoo informed Jang-hyun of this news. In the succession struggle, the murdered model was Chairman Kang's illegitimate daughter, making her a potential obstacle to eliminate. Chairman Kang's eldest son also owned a yacht. Jang-hyun requested a search warrant for the yacht, but her superiors, fearing the power of the conglomerate, refused to grant it. At this crucial moment, Insoo found a way. Insoo dragged Jang-hyun to the dock. Jang-hyun gave Insoo a blood test kit. Then, Jang-hyun hid in a car. As a wealthy heir, Insoo confidently boarded the eldest son's yacht. Insoo quickly followed Jang-hyun's instructions. Insoo sprayed the test solution inside the yacht. Sure enough, traces of blood were found on the yacht's ceiling. Insoo quickly collected the blood sample. At the same time, he also discovered fingerprints around the blood stain. Insoo immediately photographed the fingerprints and sent them to Jang-hyun. Just then, the dock manager arrived to inspect. Jang-hyun informed Insoo about this, but Insoo didn't have time to hide, so he grabbed a bottle of wine and went to the dining table. Insoo pretended to be drunk and asked others about their trip. The manager believed Insoo was genuinely drunk and left. The comparison results showed that the fingerprints belonged to the secretary of Chairman Kang's first wife. Jang-hyun suspected that the first wife might have known about Chairman Kang's illegitimate daughter, and in order for her son to succeed as chairman, had instructed the male secretary to kill his younger brother. On the night of the murder, the male secretary discovered the model had been pushed into the water by the chairman's second son. The secretary pulled the model onto the eldest son's yacht. Then, the first wife ordered the secretary to kill the model. This way, she could resolve the issue with her stepdaughter and blame the 2 sons. When the first wife and the secretary tried to escape, Jang-hyun immediately chased after them in her car, but encountered severe traffic congestion. Fortunately, Insoo had the financial means. Insoo quickly pulled Jang-hyun onto his private helicopter. Insoo pursued the first wife to the airport. Finally, Insoo used the landing gear to forcefully crush the first wife's car. Jang-hyun was also very brave. She jumped directly from the low-flying helicopter and accurately shot at the tires of the first wife's car as she tried to escape. Finally, a bullet forced the car to a stop. After Chairman Kang's first wife was arrested, she quickly confessed to the incited murder. When the eldest son visited his mother, Insoo noticed that despite his mother's arrest, the son showed no signs of sadness or anger. At this moment, he unexpectedly revealed a subtle smile. After realizing that the case might contain some hidden secrets, Insoo quickly returned to the corporation to meet the second wife. Insoo felt something was amiss. If the first wife had truly instigated the male secretary to commit murder, she could have directly killed him to cover her tracks, or she could have simply hired a lawyer. She had no reason to flee to the airport with the male secretary, and she certainly couldn't have confessed immediately after being arrested. Insoo was certain that the first wife did this to protect her son. The eldest son was the real culprit. Insoo also thought that the second wife must have evidence that the eldest son instigated the murder, such as a recording of the wiretapping. After all, for her 2 sons to inherit the company, the second wife needed to constantly keep track of her rival's movements. Insoo also guessed that the reason the second wife didn't directly tell the police was because she had committed the crime of illegal wiretapping. After confirming the evidence, Insoo sent a message to Jang-hyun, asking her not to rush to release the eldest son. Meanwhile, the eldest son was feigning sadness in front of the police. After receiving the message, Jang Hyun tried to stall for time. First, she asked the eldest son to sign a statement. When he tried to leave, Jang Hyun pretended to have something to say. Finally, In-soo returned in time and asked the eldest son to get out of the car. In front of the eldest son, In-soo played the recording of the wiretapping. The audio recording clearly showed that the eldest son had instigated the male secretary to kill the model. Therefore, the eldest son was officially arrested. In-soo had prepared premium beef to celebrate with her teammates, but Jang Hyun ordered her teammates not to participate. She believed that even without In-soo, she could still catch the real culprit. In-soo had no choice but to invite her older brother to celebrate with her. Although they were half-siblings, her brother had always been kind to In-soo since childhood. He cherished this sibling bond. The model's body remained in the morgue, but Chairman Kang refused to acknowledge his illegitimate daughter. He didn't even want to see her one last time. What surprised Jang Hyun was that In-soo proactively organized the funeral for the model. In-soo always saw a reflection of himself in the model's image. He was also an unwelcome, illegitimate child who had experienced coldness from his family. After the case concluded, In-soo received an invitation to an art exhibition, but on the day of the event, the artist was brutally murdered. It seems another case awaits In-soo's investigation. The young heir of a conglomerate has become a police officer. One day, he's invited to visit an art museum, but he discovers that the artist has been murdered inside the museum. The investigation identifies a total of 4 suspects. However, the deeper they investigate, the more they realize the truth of the case is not as simple as it seems. After In-soo discovers the artist's murder, he quickly seals off the scene. In-soo believes this is a locked room murder, and the culprit is someone in the crowd watching. Later, In-soo called Jang Hyun to the museum. Upon arrival, she instructed everyone present to leave. She examined the body. The bruises indicated the artist had died approximately 10 hours prior. Meanwhile, the exhibition had only just opened. This proved the killer was not a visitor to the exhibition. In-soo, being a temporary member of the police force, didn't fully understand the significance of examining the bruises. Jang Hyun began investigating with the artist's assistant. The assistant stated that he had worked under the artist for 10 years, describing him as a kind and compassionate person. He had gone home earlier that night, and today, while the exhibition was in progress, he was busy searching for the artist, thus missing the discovery of the artist's death. In-soo gently comforted the assistant, but after the assistant left, In-soo specifically identified this person as the culprit. Though this judgment was based solely on intuition without evidence, the director of the art museum warmly welcomed In-soo. The director frankly stated that the artist's passing had brought a highlight to the museum. Reserved tickets were now almost sold out. At the same time, according to the director, the artist was known for his erratic temperament. This completely contradicted what the assistant had said. The director also mentioned an incident. A week earlier, someone had broken into the artist's office and poured red paint. However, the artist had forgiven the intruder, but the director didn't know who it was. Jang Hyun found it strange because she discovered that the victim's body not only had blood, but also red paint. In-soo accompanied Jang Hyun in the car to investigate, but when he saw the coffee stains in the car and the pile of food bags on the seat, In-soo showed contempt because his luxury car was always spotless. The third subject of investigation was the artist's wife. When the wife heard that her husband had been murdered, she showed no surprise. She didn't even seem sad. Jang Hyun questioned the artist's wife about her alibi for the night of the murder. She calmly replied that she had been with her boyfriend all night. The investigation team reviewed the surveillance footage. However, because the artist's wife and her boyfriend's room was located in the deepest part of the building, relying solely on the camera footage was difficult to determine. Furthermore, the artist's wife's boyfriend was a con artist with a long criminal record. The artist's office surveillance camera showed that the person who came to the office to pour paint that day appeared to be a woman. The youngest member of the investigation team had a girlfriend. Jang Hyun felt a little jealous seeing the young couple so affectionate. In-soo hadn't come to work that morning. Colleagues heard that In-soo was busy at home. Jang Hyun hoped that In-soo would continue to take time off work. Actually, while In-soo was away, he was moving house. Because In-soo was the illegitimate son of Chairman Jin, he faced opposition from his father's official wife. She demanded that In-soo move out of the family mansion. In-soo didn't want to put Sung-ju in an awkward position, so he asked the housekeeper to find him an apartment. The apartment the housekeeper found was a place In-soo was very familiar with, the place where he lived with his mother when he was a child. In-soo caressed the murals he had painted years ago. Every corner of the place held memories of him and his mother. At that moment, the neighbor across the street knocked on the door. She said that if In-soo needed any help, he could come to her. Insu's older brother was very angry about his mother kicking him out of the house, but the mother cried in front of Songju, saying that she had suffered a lot because of her. Insu's mother, when Chairman Jin knew that Insu had returned to his childhood home, he became worried. He even sent a message asking if Insu had recovered any memories from being in that house. Sure enough, on the first night after moving, Insu dreamed that he was looking at a painting, and then he fell into the water. Early the next morning, Jang Hyun noticed the luxurious car across the street. She felt like she had seen it somewhere before. While Jang Hyun was thinking, Insu came out of the house opposite. Only then did Jang Hyun realize that Insu's new house was directly across from hers. The woman who had greeted Insu the day before was Jang Hyun's mother. Jang Hyun's car suddenly wouldn't start, so she had no choice but to hitch a ride in Insu's luxurious car. Insu smiled proudly. Insu gently wiped away the tiny dust particles inside the car. Then he accelerated to show off his driving skills. However, Jang Hyun informed Insu that there was a speed limit in the area. The two continued to the artist's office to investigate. The artist's assistant was also there. He recounted the incident of the paint being spilled on the painting a week earlier. The assistant even brought out a video recording of the scene that day. In the video, the artist was mocking the assistant for lacking painting talent. At that moment, a woman carrying paint walked in. She directly poured paint onto the main painting that was to be displayed at the upcoming exhibition. She also declared that the artist was a murderer. The woman had her back to the camera, so the police couldn't identify her. But Jang Hyun noticed the silk scarf she was wearing. Based on clues provided by his assistant, Jang Hyun and Insu went to the sauna to find the woman who had spilled the paint. As soon as they entered, Insu borrowed money from Jang Hyun because he didn't have his wallet with him, but he wanted to eat an egg sold at the sauna. Jang Hyun glanced at Insu, and then the two found the woman who had spilled the paint. When she heard that the artist had been murdered, she felt it was just karma. She even led the two back to her house. There, the two police officers found the house filled with paintings identical to those displayed in art museums. The woman explained that these were paintings by her daughter. It turned out that her daughter was the artist's student. The artist always pretended to help his student, but in reality, he had stolen all of her work. The student then filed a complaint against the artist, even exposing his plagiarism on television. However, due to the artist's reputation, no one was willing to believe the girl's story. The artist even sued his student, accusing her of plagiarizing his work. Under immense pressure, the girl became desperate and ended her own life. Meanwhile, the artist still intended to exhibit his student's work, so the student's mother came to the artist's office and threw paint. Furthermore, on the night of the murder, the woman worked at the sauna until midnight, so she didn't have time to commit the murder. But before the two left, Jang Hyun noticed that the woman's silk scarf looked very familiar. It was identical to the scarf worn by the woman in the video. The case became even more complicated. Moreover, the police discovered that the artist's wife had purchased insurance worth 2 billion won. The investigators suspected that the artist's wife might have killed her husband to collect the insurance money. With the money, she could have eloped with her young lover. Additionally, the investigators tracked down the artist's wife's boyfriend and discovered he was a philanderer. He used her money to support other young women. The artist's wife revealed to the police that her boyfriend had big business plans and had found investors. Currently, the suspects include the museum's assistant director, the artist's wife, and the person who spilled the paint. Jang Hyun instructed the team members to spread out the investigation, but she didn't assign any tasks to Insu. When Insu asked what he should do, Jang Hyun pointed to the bookshelf next to her. She told the wealthy young man to focus on reading and not to try to become a famous police officer like Conan. Surveillance cameras showed the student's mother didn't leave the sauna all night. Therefore, the likely culprit is the artist's wife or her young lover. Jang Hyun guessed that perhaps on the day the student's mother came to the office to spill the paint and cause trouble, the artist's wife had sensed the conflict between her and her husband, so the wife disguised herself as the student's mother to enter the museum, and in the end, she killed her husband. Meanwhile, her young lover fabricated an alibi for her. Later, he even used this to blackmail her. Jang Hyun's argument was perfect, but she had no proof. That evening, Insu was startled by a small mouse in the house, so he called Jang Hyun for help. She thought Insu had caught the culprit, but when she arrived, she found Insu hiding on the sofa, holding a slipper. His legs were trembling, so he didn't dare drive or go to the hotel. Insu had to set up a makeshift tent in his room. He decided to sleep there that night. While Jang Hyun helped Insu find the mouse, she also noticed the wealthy young man's new house. A picture of Insu's mother was hanging in the house. At this point, Jang Hyun realized she had misunderstood him. It turned out that the story of Insu living there since childhood wasn't a joke. Then, Insu told her his story. He knew he was the son of the chairman of a financial financial conglomerate, and his mother had died in a car accident when he was only 7 years old. When Jang Hyun heard In-soo recount his past, she suddenly found the wealthy heir before her not so hateful after all. The next day, the artist's wife and her boyfriend were questioned. The boyfriend of the artist's wife admitted that he intended to start a business, and the person providing him with funding was the artist's wife. The amount of capital was exactly equal to the artist's insurance payout. However, the artist's wife stated that she had planned to break up with her boyfriend and had no intention of giving him that much money. Furthermore, the artist's wife claimed that the male assistant had a higher motive for murder than she did. Jang Hyun investigated and confirmed that the assistant had received a scholarship from an art foundation. However, the artist later contacted the foundation and reported that the male assistant's collection was plagiarized. Jang Hyun also became interested in the silk scarf. She heard that the item had been discontinued. Jang Hyun asked the investigators to look into who had bought it. They discovered that someone had bought an identical scarf from the student's mother at a flea market, and the buyer of that scarf was a man. The seller pointed out that this man was the artist's male assistant. During this time, In-soo was also not idle. In-soo confidently went directly to buy the painting from the male assistant. In-soo used his identity as a wealthy young man to contact the museum director. He wanted to buy the exact painting that had been vandalized. Surprisingly, a part of the painting had peeled off. Underneath the paint were signs of a signature. In-soo requested an inspection and discovered that the painting had been signed before being covered up and then repainted. In-soo asserted that the sole reason for this was to conceal the evidence of plagiarism. In other words, the owner of the painting was not the artist. When In-soo went to see the male assistant, he examined the painting with an X-ray and discovered that the signature on the painting belonged to the assistant. While In-soo was speaking, the assistant suddenly attacked him from behind, knocking him unconscious. Young master, In-soo is not only wealthy but also kind-hearted. Anyone injured because of him will be taken to a VIP ward, and he will cover all medical and surgical expenses. If someone's work is plagiarized, In-soo will personally fund an exhibition. Regarding the murder at the art museum a few days earlier, In-soo analyzed the situation and concluded that the culprit was the artist's male assistant. After the assistant was exposed, he angrily attacked In-soo. Unexpectedly, In-soo had received training. Within minutes, In-soo successfully got back on his feet. Under In-soo's persuasion, the male assistant slowly recounted the details of how he killed the artist. It turned out that over the years, he had worked as a servant for the Thesmer artist, but the artist always used the male assistant's work to falsely claim it as his own. The artist even intentionally caused the male assistant to lose a valuable opportunity to study abroad. The male assistant recounted the story emotionally, but In-soo was not moved at all. In-soo believed that the male assistant's act of murder had disgraced his dream of becoming an artist. Jang Hyun, however, criticized In-soo fiercely. She felt he acted undisciplined and lacked professionalism. Jang Hyun hoped that In-soo would soon leave his position as a police officer. After reprimanding In-soo, she went to see the assistant. According to the male assistant, on the day of the murder, he only stabbed the artist once, and he was not the one who spilled the paint at the scene. Jang Hyun mentioned the silk scarf. The police investigated and discovered that the assistant had once bought a women's silk scarf. Jang Hyun suspected that the male assistant bought the silk scarf to disguise himself as a woman in order to murder the artist. However, the assistant refuted this, stating that the silk scarf was purchased at the artist's wife's request. From there, Jang Hyun's suspicion shifted to the artist's wife. After much deliberation, Jang Hyun believed that the artist's wife had planned to kill her husband long ago. Her goal was to inherit his estate and live with her young lover. On the day of the crime, the artist's wife wore the silk scarf, disguising herself as a woman who had previously had a conflict with the artist. Unexpectedly, the male assistant stabbed the artist first, while he was still alive. The artist's wife then seized the opportunity to kill her husband, intending to frame the assistant. Unfortunately, Jang Hyun lacked evidence to prove this. Because In-soo felt guilty, he moved the assistant to a VIP ward and paid for all his medical expenses. The assistant provided a crucial clue. The artist always wore his personal safe key on his back, but after the murder, the key mysteriously disappeared. In-soo shared this clue with Jang Hyun, suspecting the artist's wife had taken it. This could be crucial evidence to convict her. To catch the culprit, Jang Hyun lied to the artist's wife, claiming the assistant was dead. Sure enough, the artist's wife and her lover went to the bank. She gave the safe key to an employee, intending to withdraw money from the artist's safe. Unbeknownst to them, the employee was actually In-soo in disguise. In-soo threw the key to Jang Hyun for inspection. Jang Hyun confirmed that the key bore the artist's fingerprints and blood evidence of the artist's wife's crime. Although the culprit was caught, In-soo didn't stop there. He continued to help the assistant organize an art exhibition. This time, all the works displayed at the exhibition weren't by the artist, but by the female student whose work had been plagiarized by the artist. The girl's mother thanked In-soo for everything he had done and called him police officer. In-soo liked this name very much. During this time, In-soo seemed to love his job even more. That evening, In-soo invited the youngest member of the investigation team to dinner. He took the opportunity to inquire about Jang Hyun. According to the youngest member, Jang Hyun was a talented young police officer. In 3 years of work, she had arrested 34 important suspects. Even so, Jang Hyun was still not highly regarded by her superiors. The main reason was her father. Jang Hyun's father was once a legend in the serious crime investigation team, but just as he was about to retire, he was arrested and lost his position for accepting large bribes. Her father's story affected her superior's assessment of Jang Hyun. Therefore, even though Jang Hyun achieved many accomplishments at a very young age, she couldn't avoid negative gossip. Recently, In-soo has been living comfortably in the house across from Jang Hyun's. One day, he noticed the leaves in the yard seemed to be wilting. At that moment, Jang Hyun's father passed by and helped In-soo spray the leaves with insecticide. When Jang Hyun's father knew that In-soo had lived there before she was 7 years old, he couldn't help but recall the past. When In-soo's mother passed away, Jang Hyun's father, as a police investigator, had met In-soo when she was a child. However, Jang Hyun's father didn't tell In-soo about this. Jang Hyun's mother really liked the new neighbor. She even made kimchi for In-soo and asked her daughter to deliver it. In-soo accepted the gift and got into Jang Hyun's car. He proudly told her about helping organize an exhibition for the original artist. Jang Hyun pretended not to know, but she couldn't help but laugh. Just then, a new case occurred. The victim was an elderly woman living alone. There were no external wounds on the body. The examination revealed that the old woman had died from choking on rice cakes. Jang Hyun asked In-soo to inquire with the surrounding residents, and he actually did as instructed. As a result, some residents mistook him for a multi-level marketing salesperson. He was startled by a dog in the yard. He even encountered a group of tattooed men planting trees. In the end, In-soo didn't gather any clues, but he had a very good understanding of the situation of the surrounding residents. In-soo reported what he had gathered to Jang Hyun, but she ignored him. He felt like a dog being trained, but that was just his feeling. In-soo was ignored all afternoon. Everyone was busy with work, while In-soo sat on a chair playing games. He fell asleep until the end of the workday without anyone waking him up. As In-soo was preparing to go home, the granddaughter of the recently deceased elderly man came to visit. The girl said her grandfather never ate rice cakes. Furthermore, the granddaughter discovered a missing item in the house, a national seal. In-soo quickly informed Jang Hyun, but Jang Hyun and his colleagues didn't believe her. The national seal was an extremely valuable item. How could it possibly be in an ordinary person's house? In-soo became angry and decided to bet with her colleagues. Whoever was right would get to punch the other in the face. In-soo warned Jang Hyun that he would punch her in the chin. In-soo spoke like a child, while Jang Hyun just laughed without saying anything. The victim's granddaughter gave In-soo a picture of the national seal. To win the bet, In-soo consulted an expert for appraisal. The expert concluded that the seal in the picture was very likely genuine. It is said that dozens of national seals have fallen into the hands of the people. The seal in the photo is painted black as a way to conceal the truth. Furthermore, during the investigation, In-soo discovered that the victim was a former robber with a criminal record. He had previously broken into a chairman's house to steal. Now, In-soo can confirm that the seal is genuine. Therefore, he won the bet. In-soo pointed his finger at his colleague's chin, preparing to hit him, but he was stopped by Jang Hyun. Forensic experts discovered that besides the old man's case, there were 2 recent cases of death by choking on rice cakes, and both cases were concluded as accidental deaths. Forensic expert Choi felt something was wrong and conducted an experiment on Jang Hyun. The evidence showed that the rice cake pieces removed from the victims' mouths showed no signs of chewing. This was clearly illogical, so Jang Hyun decided to reopen the investigation. If these 3 cases were not accidents, then this was a serial murder case. Jang Hyun immediately went to meet the families of the victims in the 2 previous cases. According to the families, after the victims' sudden deaths, valuable jewelry or belongings had gone missing from their homes. Jang Hyun began investigating the case as a murder-robbery. She noticed that all the victims had attended the same church. However, according to people in the church, the 3 victims looked looked like ordinary people. Perhaps very few people knew that they were hiding valuables in their homes. In-soo thought about the church manager in charge of the donation fund. He would surely know who in the congregation was wealthy. But unexpectedly, the manager claimed that the church's books had been stolen. Jong-hyun speculated that the killer used stolen ledgers to select targets. Forensic expert Choi also made new findings. After thorough examination, she discovered injection marks on the bodies of the 3 victims, and nicotine was found in their stomachs. This indicated that the victims had been poisoned to death. Surveillance cameras showed 2 men appearing near the victims' homes. In-soo noted that the photos of the 3 victims all appeared to have been taken at home. Police investigated and discovered that the photographers were 2 elderly people doing free charity work. Jong-hyun speculated that these 2 men were the culprits. To lure the killer out, young master In-soo didn't hesitate to spend 10 billion won in cash. Even when the bank was closed, In-soo only needed to say a word to summon a manager to serve him. To sneak into the secret auction house, a place where criminals might appear, young master In-soo spent a large sum of money to transform Jong-hyun into a seductive woman. Recently, In-soo and the police team have been investigating a series of murders. Since the crime scene left no clues, In-soo decided to investigate using the stolen national seal. In-soo contacted an expert specializing in collecting rare treasures. After a few days, the expert responded that the national seal had been found and was about to be auctioned for 10 billion won. The members of the investigation team were baffled. They didn't know where such a large sum of money would come from. They worried that using counterfeit money might be detected. However, In-soo confidently stood with his arms crossed, unafraid, because he had plenty of money in the bank. 10 billion won was no big deal for him. In the middle of the night, In-soo called the bank manager to open the door, and then he easily withdrew 10 billion won in cash. When the team members saw the 2 large bags of cash, they couldn't believe their eyes. However, In-soo remained indifferent, because to him, this was just a minor matter. Intelligence indicated that the 2 suspects would be trading the national seal at a club. This club was for VIPs only, so Jong-hyun and the other members couldn't get in. To allow Jong-hyun In-soo pretended she was his girlfriend. He hired a private makeup artist to do her makeup. After Jong-hyun was made up, she instantly became a captivating woman. To make it more natural, In-soo even taught her how to dance on the dance floor. Jong-hyun had a beautiful figure, but outside of the investigation, she didn't care about anything else. After the auction opened, In-soo used the 10 billion won in cash to buy back the national seal. The money bag contained a tracking device. The investigative team members waited outside to monitor the situation. However, the killer was too clever. After taking the 10 billion won in cash, he discovered the tracking device and escaped. The auctioneer was completely unaware of this. The cameras also failed to capture the killer's identities, so the investigative team could only return to the police station in disappointment. The 10 billion won had been taken by the killer. Everyone felt sorry for the money, but In-soo didn't care. For him, life was simply about spending money. Jong-hyun worried that the 2 suspects would use this opportunity to escape. In-soo quickly devised a plan. He intended to use an expensive item as bait and have someone pretend to be an elderly person living alone to lure the killer out. But involving ordinary citizens to solve the problem was impossible, and finding a suitable elderly person for the task was not easy either. Jong-hyun then thought of her father. He was elderly and a former police officer, so completing the task wouldn't be a problem for him. However, she didn't expect her father to refuse immediately. Jong-hyun understood that her father simply didn't want to relive his past as a police officer. He had once been a legendary officer, but unfortunately he was accused of embezzlement just before his retirement. Jong-hyun tried to persuade her father, because throughout the years, she had always believed he was innocent. She vowed to uncover the truth and clear her father's name. In Jong-hyun's closet was a box. Inside was her father's police cap. Years ago, after Jong-hyun's father was wrongly accused and she was suspended from her job, her father, in his disappointment, threw his uniform and police cap into the trash. At that time, Jong-hyun picked up her father's police cap. No matter what others thought, she always believed her father was innocent. Meanwhile, In-soo approached the female secretary in charge of the auction. In-soo asked the secretary to post a fake news story online about an elderly person owning an extremely valuable incense burner and a wealthy tycoon offering a high price to help retrieve it. Sure enough, the 2 murderers murderers were attracted by the exorbitant price and accepted the job. Because Jang Hyun's father refused to cooperate, In-soo hurried to the house across the street to help. Jang Hyun and In-soo worked together seamlessly. They deliberately created a tense atmosphere, as if they were about to catch a murderer. Finally, her father agreed to help, but his only worry was his wife, who stayed home all day. In the script, the victim of the scam was an elderly, single woman, so Jang Hyun's mother certainly couldn't be home, otherwise she would be discovered by the murderer. Therefore, Jang Hyun's mother temporarily left the house for a while. In-soo once again used her spending power. He directly requested the travel company, a branch of his corporation, to create a winning travel ticket. The destination was Jang Hyun's mother's most desired place. Sure enough, after seeing the ticket, Jang Hyun's mother was overjoyed. She immediately went on the trip with her friends. On the day Jang Hyun's mother left for her trip, the main operation officially began. Jang Hyun disguised her father as an old man. Then she installed surveillance cameras throughout the house. All the team members hid at In-soo's house, across from Jang Hyun's. Waiting in secret, Jang Hyun distributed guns to each team member, but when it was In-soo's turn, she only gave him a pair of handcuffs. This made In-soo a little upset. He wasn't unfamiliar with using guns, but Jang Hyun declared that she would rather die than give In-soo a gun, because she didn't know what kind of trouble he might cause. While waiting, In-soo also invited a famous chef to his house to prepare many delicious dishes. After a few days, everyone had tried various kinds of food. Those unaware thought they were having a party. After the entire investigation team had eaten their fill, the two murderers finally appeared. Jang Hyun's father carried out a plan to lure them into the house. The investigation team was also ready for surveillance and arrest. Sure enough, in the surveillance footage, the two murderers were attracted by the incense burner that In-soo had deliberately placed. Soon after, they offered Jang Hyun's father some rice cakes and some rice water. To avoid suspicion, Jang Hyun's father was forced to drink the rice water. After he lost consciousness, the murderer quickly acted. First, he put the incense burner into his bag. Then, he aimed the syringe at the mole on Jang Hyun's father's neck. Unexpectedly, just as the injection was about to be given, Jang Hyun's father suddenly opened his eyes and tried to subdue the assailant. It turned out that Jang Hyun's father had secretly spat out rice water when the assailant wasn't paying attention. At the same time, Jang Hyun and his team arrived. The assailant was holding Jang Hyun's father hostage and demanding that the police stop. Unexpectedly, at the crucial moment, In-soo rushed in from the side door by the river. He kicked the assailant away, and Jang Hyun's father seized the opportunity to subdue him. Then, In-soo took out handcuffs and successfully apprehended the killer. After the killer was caught, Jang Hyun led the team out like heroes. Another group couldn't believe Jang Hyun could complete the mission. Everyone was astonished, their eyes wide with surprise, and the most satisfied person was In-soo. Recalling how he had used handcuffs to apprehend the killer, In-soo happily wrote a self-praise. That evening, Jang Hyun held a party for the whole team, but this time, she didn't forget to invite Tae In-soo. During this time, Jang Hyun's resentment towards the wealthy heir had lessened considerably. In-soo was being invited by friends to meet a famous star, although that star was In-soo's favorite. As soon as Jang Hyun called, In-soo immediately got up and went to the party. The party was held at an ordinary restaurant. This was the first time In-soo had tasted ordinary food, and he found it very delicious. At the party, Jang Hyun and In-soo toasted each other. Even those who had previously disliked In-soo happily accepted him. Before going home, Jang Hyun thanked In-soo, and this also meant that she officially accepted and acknowledged the talent of the wealthy heir. In-soo's father was waiting for his son at home. He hoped his son would return to the mansion or move elsewhere. In-soo knew this house was where his mother gave birth to and raised him. His father had abandoned his mother, and he didn't want his son to stay here and dwell on the past. In-soo flatly refused his father's wish. He hated his father for abandoning his mother in the past and would never follow his father's advice to be a good son. After successfully solving the recent case, In-soo submitted the national seal related to the case to the state. Thanks to this, he received widespread praise from the media. In-soo was once a wealthy young man who only knew how to cause trouble, but now he has become an outstanding citizen. Just because In-soo initiated a breakup with his girlfriend, he was slapped hard by her. She wanted to be the one to break up with him. Although In-soo tried to be understanding, she was unreasonable and kicked him. Finally, In-soo had to carry her on his shoulders. A few days ago, young Master In-soo solved a case, but very quickly, a new, strange case emerged. In a warehouse, a man died mysteriously. In-soo immediately recognized the victim as a representative of a software company. This man had even appeared in an economic magazine. Investigations revealed that the warehouse had previously been a small office where the victim had begun his journey to wealth. The autopsy showed the victim died from dehydration. Even stranger, a crate of mineral water was found in the warehouse right next to to the victim's feet. In-soo racked his brain but couldn't find an answer. The investigative team discovered that the last person the victim called was a psychiatrist. Jang-hyun quickly joined In-soo in investigating this female doctor. She worked at a private hospital that catered to the wealthy. When Jang-hyun inquired about the victim, the female doctor admitted he was her patient. However, she refused to disclose the victim's condition and other information, citing patient privacy. In-soo mentioned the victim's strange death. The doctor speculated that the victim may have died from dehydration-induced convulsions. Regarding the victim's last phone call, the doctor admitted that the victim had said he was very scared and that someone was killing him. In-soo considered the doctor a suspect, but Jang-hyun just laughed and said nothing. Since In-soo solved the major case, he naturally transformed into Detective Conan whenever he faced a new one. The police checked the victim's dashcam footage. The images showed him having an argument with a man. Jang-hyun and In-soo continued their investigation at the victim's company. Employees there realized that the person who had argued with the victim was a team leader. Fine. But the team leader hadn't come to work for a whole week. Furthermore, an employee revealed that the victim, Kim Hyuk, had apparently used company funds for investments. The investments resulted in losses, nearly bankrupting the company. The team leader discovered this and used the information to blackmail Kim Hyuk. Jang-hyun wanted the team leader's contact information, but when the police arrived at the man's house, they found him dead. The manner of death was truly gruesome. The smell of the corpse at the scene was overwhelming. In-soo, accustomed to the scent of flowers and birdsong, couldn't stand the smell and vomited repeatedly. Finally, In-soo had to ask the housekeeper to bring him a gas mask. The autopsy results showed that the team leader had died a week prior. He was professionally murdered. Clearly, the killer was not an inexperienced assassin. The police suspected that Kim Hyuk might have killed the team leader because the latter had threatened him. Kim Hyuk then hid in the warehouse. He unfortunately died from convulsions and dehydration. However, there was an inconsistency. 20 billion won in cash was found at the scene of the team leader's death. If Kim Hyuk was the real killer, why didn't he take the money to save the company? Fingerprints on the money bag were identified. They belonged to a young woman from a wealthy family. When In-soo knew this, he was shocked because this young woman was his ex-girlfriend. Not long before, In-soo had broken up with her. She had angrily slapped him in the street, and this incident was even filmed and posted on social media. To this day, it remains a hot topic. Jang-hyun asked In-soo to investigate his ex-girlfriend. Although In-soo wasn't interested, he couldn't resist the pleading of his teammates. When In-soo went to see the wealthy heiress she was knowing flower arranging, she announced to In-soo that she was getting married. In-soo playfully asked who the groom was, even jokingly saying he wanted to send a wreath to him. When In-soo asked about the deceased team leader, the heiress admitted that she had been under a lot of pressure recently because of her upcoming marriage. She had gone to see a psychiatrist, but then the team leader used this to blackmail her, forcing her to give him money. Initially, In-soo spoke in a gentle tone, telling the heiress to trust him. She could confide anything to him. Hearing this, the young lady was moved. Unexpectedly, shortly afterward, In-soo asked if she had killed the team leader. The young lady was so angry that she threw scissors at In-soo, but luckily he dodged them. On the way home, In-soo reported the clues he had found from the young lady to Jang-hyun. Jang-hyun also discovered that the hospital's financial security system, where the psychiatrist worked, was a product developed by Kim Hyuk's company, and the team leader was in charge of that system. In other words, the team leader may have used his position to steal patient information and blackmail patients. The culprit was most likely one of the victims. Jang-hyun thought they should investigate In-soo's ex-girlfriend first, but In-soo shook his head. "I know my ex-girlfriend well. She's just a young lady who can't hide her emotions. Someone like that can't lie." Just then, Jang-hyun's mother cheerfully came out. She warmly invited In-soo into the house for soup. Jang-hyun secretly gestured for In-soo not to come in, but In-soo deliberately disobeyed Jang-hyun and entered the house. Recently, Jang-hyun's mother noticed that her daughter and In-soo had become close. She began to want In-soo to become her son-in-law. Since In-soo's mother passed away, he hadn't enjoyed normal home-cooked meals for a long time. Just now, he tried a spoonful of soup, but the result was that he had to spit it out immediately. The bone broth that Jang-hyun's mother had made was too salty. Taking advantage of his mother's inattention, Jang-hyun quickly poured half a kettle of water into In-soo's bowl. This reduced the saltiness a little. Besides the bone broth, the other dishes were either too salty or too spicy. But Insu still tried to eat it all. Although the food wasn't delicious, Insu felt warm. He hadn't felt such simple happiness in a long time. After Jang Hyun's mother knew that Insu was a wealthy heir, she immediately started dreaming about the wonderful life her daughter would have after marrying him. A while later, Insu returned home. There was a crystal ball in the house. There was also an identical crystal ball in the psychiatrist's office. That night, Insu had the same dream as before. He dreamed he was standing in front of a mysterious painting. The next day, Jang Hyun and Insu visited the female psychiatrist. They inquired about the case of the newly murdered team leader. The female doctor knew that the team leader had stolen patient information from the hospital, but she claimed she knew nothing about it. The hospital's patients were all important people. Jang Hyun couldn't get a search warrant, but she wanted all the patient data here. However, the psychiatrist, still Billy, refused to cooperate. After Jang Hyun left, Insu told the female doctor about his dream. The doctor frankly explained that dreams are reflections of the subconscious. Perhaps Insu's subconscious wanted to convey a message to him. However, he didn't understand the psychiatrist's meaning. After Insu left, the female doctor secretly sent a message to Insu's father. She said that Insu's memories seemed to be gradually recovering. Chairman Jin saw the message and immediately became worried. The investigation confirmed that on the day of the murder, Insu's ex-girlfriend was abroad. There was evidence proving that she was not present at the scene. The police found messages that had been deleted by the two victims. Based on the content of those messages, Jang Hyun speculated that the three group leaders had used the embezzlement of public funds to threaten Kim Hyuk. Because Kim Hyuk was penniless, he stole hospital data. He and his team leader then used that data to blackmail patients. Unfortunately, they angered someone important, and the team leader was brutally murdered. Kim Hyuk, terrified, hid in a warehouse. Everything now makes sense. The police just need to find the person they blackmailed. The message also mentioned a USB drive. Jang Hyun searched all over Kim Hyuk's company, but she couldn't find this crucial evidence. Insu went to the team leader's house to search. Unexpectedly, he encountered the suspect. Confidently, Insu pulled out his specially made handcuffs, but during the argument, the suspect handcuffed Insu. Unwilling to give up, Insu tried to escape. He then used a speed bumps cable to tie himself up. Finally, he broke through a window to escape. Insu fell to the first floor and caught the suspect. Jang Hyun had scolded Insu for acting so recklessly, but compared to before, her tone seemed to hold a hint of concern. Jang Hyun's mother had called her daughter. She said that a reporter had recently been loitering near their house. The reporter claimed to be investigating Insu's mother's death many years ago. Jang Hyun checked the case file and discovered that her father was the one investigating the case. At the time, Insu's mother had died from drowning in the bathtub. The case was concluded to have no signs of foul play. When his mother died, Insu was only 7 years old. He lay unconscious beside the bathtub when his mother passed away. Reading this, Jang Hyun looked at Insu in surprise. She remembered Insu saying that he only vaguely remembered his mother dying in a traffic accident. A psychiatrist is capable of using hypnosis to kill people. To gain access to this dangerous doctor, Insu spares no expense in making his teammate wealthy. A few days ago, a police officer, Insu, arrested the suspect. Insu and Jang Hyun both believe the suspect is a janitor who solves problems for wealthy people. But when questioned, the man claims he only broke into houses to steal and didn't kill anyone. At that moment, the man's phone received a call. Insu guessed it was from the person who hired him. After hesitating for a while, the man ultimately didn't answer the call. Insu couldn't accept that, so he quickly answered the call. Insu impersonated the man to speak to the caller. The caller was tricked and arranged to meet somewhere. Insu quickly took off the man's shirt and put it on himself. Insu planned to disguise himself as a man to meet his employer. Late at night, when the employer appeared, Insu quickly shone a flashlight in his face. It turned out to be a high-ranking legislator. To extract useful information from the legislator, Insu asked Jang Hyun to allow him to take charge of the interrogation. However, the legislator maintained his innocence in front of Insu. Insu immediately lied, claiming the police had found the USB drive. The legislator was genuinely alarmed by this information. Previously, thanks to a loophole in the hospital's security system, the two victims had obtained patient information from the psychiatric department. They used it to blackmail patients, and all the blackmail information was stored on the USB drive. However, the police did not find the USB drive at the victim's home. The legislator hastily asserted that the information on the USB drive could not be exposed. Then, under pressure from Insu, the legislator finally admitted that he had only been blackmailed and had given money to the two victims. He had not killed anyone. The police later investigated and confirmed that the legislator was elsewhere at the time of the crime. Therefore, he was cleared of suspicion. investigation. Jang Hyun believed that the only way to uncover the truth was to find the USB drive. A few days later, on the anniversary of In-soo's mother's death, he wore his police uniform to commemorate her. During the investigation, In-soo suddenly thought that perhaps the victim had hidden the USB drive in someone's grave. After Jang Hyun investigated, she knew that the victim's father had passed away many years ago. Sure enough, next to the father's memorial tablet, they found the USB drive. When they opened the USB, they discovered it contained videos of patients waiting for treatment in the psychiatric ward. First, In-soo saw his ex-girlfriend in the video. She was frantically burning all the designer handbags he had bought for her. Next was a video of the legislator. The team members stared at the video. They discovered that the legislator had a penchant for cross-dressing. In-soo quickly averted his gaze and cursed. The people in the USB video were not ordinary people. They were all important figures in politics and business. They were all willing to kill to protect their secrets. To find the culprit, In-soo contacted his ex-girlfriend to learn about the situation. The young lady revealed that after being threatened, she went to see a psychiatrist at the hospital and caused a disturbance. This means that the psychiatrist knew about the patient's information leak right in front of the police, but she lied, claiming she knew nothing. In-soo and Jang Hyun analyzed that after the information was leaked, the female doctor went to see the head of the hospital's security system to ask questions, but the head of the team used this to threaten the female doctor. In any case, if the contents of the USB were leaked, the person who would suffer the most would be the female doctor. The patients whose information was leaked would not let her off the hook. In a desperate situation, the female doctor killed the head of the team. Then, she used hypnosis to kill the person who was threatening her. Everyone heard about killing someone using hypnosis, but they didn't believe it. To verify whether hypnosis was truly effective, In-soo came up with an interesting idea. He planned to have one of his members disguise himself as a wealthy young man to approach the female doctor to see if they could be successfully hypnotized. This time, In-soo once again spent a large sum of money. First, he bought an expensive suit for Do-nam to wear. Then, he swapped his watch with the other man's. Finally, he helped Do-nam tie his tie, arrange his handkerchief, and apply some hair wax. After being groomed by In-soo, Do-nam transformed from an ordinary person into a rich young man. Once ready, Do-nam went to see the doctor alone. He requested that the doctor perform hypnosis so he could like someone he normally hated. The doctor complied with Do-nam's request. Afterwards, Do-nam felt relieved. He thought that hypnosis was useless. Just then, In-soo appeared. Do-nam's gaze immediately shifted towards In-soo. In-soo's finger had been pricked by a pencil. Do-nam rushed over, grabbed In-soo's hand, and blew on the wound, an action completely contrary to normal. Do-nam even insisted on applying medicine to In-soo himself. Do-nam even lifted In-soo up like a princess. Witnessing this, Jang Hyun finally believed that hypnosis was truly effective. In-soo also met the professor, the female doctor's teacher. The professor also said that if the person using hypnosis had malicious intentions, hypnosis could be used to kill someone. In-soo noticed the trophy behind the professor. Inside was a scalpel awarded as a prize. In-soo remembered that the female doctor's office also had an identical trophy, but that trophy lacked the scalpel. At this point, In-soo almost certainly concluded that the female doctor was the murderer. But currently, In-soo had no evidence. To capture the doctor, In-soo arranged to meet Jang Hyun for a meal of crispy pork. He claimed he had devised a plan to counter the female doctor, but he needed Jang Hyun's assistance. The next day, In-soo arranged to meet the doctor as planned. She was unprepared. Unexpectedly, In-soo invited a professor along. He persuaded the professor to hypnotize the doctor. The hypnosis was very effective. After a few hours, the doctor, in a hypnotic state, voluntarily ran to the police station to confess. She proactively admitted her crimes. Everything unfolded exactly as In-soo had predicted. After the patient's information was leaked, the doctor feared retaliation from political and business leaders. Therefore, she used a scalpel to kill the team leader who was threatening her. Afterwards, she applied hypnosis to Kim Hyuk, causing him to hide in a warehouse without food or drink. Ultimately, Kim Hyuk died from dehydration. After the doctor confessed, she awoke from her hypnotic state, but by then, it was too late to save her. The police had known the location of the scalpel from the doctor's confession. This was the best evidence to convict her. In-soo and Jang Hyun immediately went to the hospital. Based on the doctor's confession, they found a secret room behind a mirror and discovered the scalpel used as the murder weapon. It was hidden in the safe of the hidden room. As they were about to leave, In-soo noticed a painting hanging on the hospital ceiling. The painting depicted a woman drowning. In-soo felt this painting resembled a dream he had long had. Traces of of the victim's blood were found on the scalpel. This was the evidence that led to the doctor's arrest. After the incident, Insu was stopped by a reporter seeking a major news story. The reporter hoped Insu would hand over the USB drive, otherwise he would exploit the death of Insu's mother. However, Insu flatly refused. Insu was now a police officer, so he wouldn't succumb to such a shameless reporter. Sungju also sought out Insu because of that USB drive. The USB contained a video of a legislator with a penchant for cross-dressing. This man was running for mayor of Seoul and was an opponent of Insu's father. Sungju hoped to use the video to help his father defeat his opponent, but Insu still refused his brother's offer. Later, Insu went to the police station to find Jang Hyun. He knew that if the contents of the USB were leaked, it would certainly cause a major upheaval in the political and business world. To prevent this risk, Insu burned the USB in front of Jang Hyun. After the matter was resolved, he didn't forget to thank her. He knew that Jang Hyun could have easily dismissed him from the police force, but she didn't. During his time working alongside his bros colleagues, Insu found his meaning of existence for the first time. He promised himself and Jang Hyun that he would continue to be a good police officer. Insu's words convinced Jang Hyun. Initially, Jang Hyun intended to submit a report requesting Insu's dismissal to her superiors, but now she has put the report away. Although Insu is a somewhat arrogant young master, he actually has endearing qualities. After the female doctor was arrested, she contacted Insu's father, hoping he would bail her out, but Chairman Jin refused to answer the call. Now, to him, the female doctor's existence was just a threat. Because Chairman Jin wouldn't help, the female doctor contacted Insu directly and asked to meet him. Insu didn't know that he was the female doctor's last remaining lucky charm. After the two met, the female doctor seemed to repeat the dream Insu had long dreamed. She said that she created this dream for him. The female doctor also mentioned the death of Insu's mother. She said she had hidden the truth about the case in his dream. Therefore, Insu wanted to understand the truth, so he listened to the female doctor and began to enter a hypnotic state. In his subconscious, Insu stood before a painting. Then, following the doctor's instructions, Insu found a door on the ground. Insu opened the door, went down the stairs, and saw a house. The person walking ahead of Insu was himself at age 7. He entered the bathroom and found his mother drowned in the bathtub. This scene was exactly the same as the painting of the drowned woman Insu had seen before. A famous actress suddenly died on the film set. The police investigated and discovered that the suspect was a male actor. He had a complicated romantic relationship with the actress. Before the incident, Insu met with a psychiatrist who claimed to know the truth behind his mother's death. Under the psychiatrist's hypnosis, Insu recovered his subconscious memories. He discovered that his mother hadn't died in a car accident but had drowned in the bathtub at home. There were no signs of murder at the scene. Upon knowing this truth, Insu immediately confronted his father, wanting to know why he had kept it a secret all this time. Chairman Jin's explanation was very convincing. His mother's death deeply shocked Insu. He even went without food and sleep for a long time. To help his son recover, Chairman Jin had the psychiatrist hypnotize him. He wanted to erase the memory of his mother's death from Insu's mind. However, Insu did not accept this explanation. He believed his mother's death was his father's fault because his father had been cold towards her. Moreover, although he always said he loved Insu's mother very much, when she was in trouble, Chairman Jin chose to protect his reputation. He left early under the housekeeper's arrangement. Insu believed that his father was just a selfish man and therefore unworthy of talking about love. Because of his mother's death, Insu was depressed all night. Jang Hyun took Insu for a walk to soothe his mood. She said that she also knew about Insu's mother's case. Earlier, Jang Hyun had checked information from the police station and found out that Insu's mother suffered from anxiety disorder when she was alive. Insu felt very sad, thinking that he was a burden. Jang Hyun tried to comfort Insu. She said that some things simply happen naturally, and those who are still alive shouldn't carry such a heavy burden. After Insu returned home, Jang Hyun met with a reporter who had recently been investigating Insu's mother's case. Jang Hyun hoped the reporter would stop the investigation and promised to provide him with the rightful information on the case. After consideration, the reporter finally agreed to stop. Not long after, another major case occurred. A film crew was shooting at a hotel. The next day, the lead actress suddenly died at the hotel bar. Strangely, the representative of the investment company for the film had blood all over his clothes. Jang Hyun was in charge of this case, and she arrested the representative on the spot. Through the crime scene investigation, the police discovered that the actress had been murdered in the makeup room. Later, her body was moved to the bar. The agent repeatedly protested her innocence after being arrested. Jang Hyun also felt very awkward because, although there were traces of blood on the agent, the police found no motive for murder. Moreover, the staff on the film crew avoided talking about the relationship between the agent and the actress. At this moment, Insu suddenly appeared after half a day off work. After the incident involving his mother, Insu was no longer in the mood to work. 2. Help Insu lift his spirits. The butler told him about his mother's past. Insu's mother used to be the butler's subordinate. Since becoming pregnant, she had given up her job to take care of her son, and that was the greatest happiness for her. She named her son Insu. This name means someone who is useful to the world. His mother hoped that Insu would grow up to be such a person. The butler's words helped Insu feel a little better. At that moment, the arrested agent sent Insu a message begging for his help. Therefore, Insu quickly returned to the police station. The arrested agent was Insu's close friend. This friend pleaded his innocence to Insu, saying that he had only taken medication and slept on set the previous night and that he hadn't killed anyone. Although this was just the suspect's statement, based on his understanding of his friend, Insu was certain that his friend was not the murderer. Jang Hyun pointed out the difficulty of the case to Insu. They couldn't find a motive for the murder, and they were also unclear about the relationship between the victim and the people on the film crew, as all the staff remained silent. Insu speculated that they did this to protect their jobs, because in the entertainment industry, any minor incident can be exaggerated without limit. To get everyone on the film crew to speak up, Insu had to find an investor with more power than his friend. Soon, Insu knew that behind the film crew was another representative from the production company. Insu quickly took Jang Hyun to meet this representative. When the two arrived at the company, Jang Hyun noticed that every employee there respectfully bowed to Insu. However, Insu didn't return the greeting. Instead, he went directly into the CEO's office. Insu calmly sat down in the representative's chair. Only then did Jang Hyun notice the nameplate on the representative's desk. It bore Insu's name. It turned out that Insu was the real representative of the production company. Immediately afterward, acting as the representative, Insu summoned each member of the film crew to his office. First, Insu offered to compensate for emotional distress and pay everyone a consolation prize, since it was, after all, a murder case. Later, Insu announced a reward of 1 billion won for any information provided. Enticed by the money, the staff began to speak up. Everyone suspected that the murderer was the male lead who acted alongside the victim. Rumors circulated that the two had dated, but had broken up not long after. Because of that relationship, the actress had been verbally abused by the male lead's fans. Therefore, when filming began, their relationship became strained. Furthermore, a staff member witnessed the two lead actors arguing on the day of the murder. The actress even threatened to reveal a secret of the male lead. Jang Hyun and Insu visited the actor, and when they inquired about his relationship with the victim, the actor described it as unclear. When the actress threatened to reveal their relationship, he chose to ignore her. More importantly, the actor quickly found witnesses who could prove that he was not present at the scene on the day of the murder. Although the actor was temporarily cleared of suspicion, Insu could not tolerate his arrogance. Insu declared that the actor was simply a terrible man. The autopsy results confirmed that the red dress the victim was wearing had been removed by the killer after she was murdered. Additionally, skin tissue was found under the actress's fingernails, indicating she had scratched the killer before death. However, the DNA test results did not match the arrested representative. Jang Hyun examined the actor's arms and neck, but found no scratch marks. Therefore, suspicion regarding this actor was ruled out. But very soon after, when the police were reviewing the behind-the-scenes footage of the film crew, Insu noticed a detail in the corner of the frame. The actress playing the second supporting role in the film had slapped the lead actress, Jang Hyun. Insu met with the makeup artist for the second supporting actress. The makeup artist admitted that the slapping incident had indeed happened. The makeup artist offered a theory about the reason. She suggested that the second supporting actress had previously won an award meant for the lead actress, but after she got married and returned to acting, she was only given supporting roles. She was even considered inferior to a newcomer actress. Therefore, the second supporting actress felt resentful. The makeup artist noticed that the second supporting actress frequently showed dissatisfaction on set. She felt that the victim had stolen her scenes. Furthermore, the makeup artist had heard a rumor that there was once a film with two lead actresses, and the current second supporting actress was one of them. But then, an accident occurred on set that disfigured the female lead. Rumors circulated that the culprit was the second female lead. Jang Hyun and Insu then went to the second female lead's house. Knowing the police were coming, she meticulously reapplied her makeup. At this time, Jang Hyun received a text message. DNA results confirmed that the skin tissue sample under the victim's fingernail belonged to the second female lead. Meanwhile, the second female lead slowly descended the stairs. But when confronted by the police, she showed no surprise or anxiety. The female lead had been slapped by the second female lead on set, and that same evening, the female lead was murdered. The police suspected the second female lead was involved in the case and went to her house to investigate. But when confronted by the police, the second female lead remained calm. She explained why she slapped the victim. According to the second female lead, the slap was at the victim's request. This action was in preparation for a scene in the script. When the police mentioned the discovery of skin tissue under the victim's fingernails, the second female lead also offered an explanation. After she slapped the victim, she noticed a red rash on her back. The victim helped her apply cream, so the skin tissue under the victim's fingernails was likely from that time. Additionally, the second female lead provided a clue that there was a stalker following the actress. Afraid of trouble, she advised the victim to catch the stalker herself. Forensic experts also confirmed that the skin tissue under the victim's fingernails contained components of the rash cream. Therefore, suspicion against the second female lead was ruled out. Afterward, Jang Hyun and In-soo contacted the victim's manager to find out more. This person admitted that there was indeed a stalker targeting the actress, and that person was the male actor. According to the account, the actor had aggressively pursued the actress. After being rejected, he imitated her photography style and then posted the photos on social media, trying to create the illusion that they were dating. The manager also presented several harassing messages the actor had sent to the actress, proving the stalker's accusation. At the time of the murder, the actor had a solid alibi. Unless he had directed someone else to commit the crime, he could not have been the perpetrator. Police discovered that before her death, the victim had watched a video. However, because the video was viewed via cloud computing, the police could not see its content. Fortunately, the cloud computing manager was a fan of the actress. They sent an email notifying that the video had been deleted and only the video's name remains. It's clear that on the day of the incident, the actress should have been filming. This means it's possible someone sent her a video while she was filming. In-soo noticed the English prefix in the video's file name. It seems to have come from a surveillance system. When In-soo went to the actress's house to investigate, he discovered hidden surveillance cameras. In-soo speculated that the actress had installed a surveillance system to catch a stalker. Therefore, the surveillance cameras might have captured a clue. Jang Hyun checked the security cameras in the residential area where the actress lived and discovered that during filming, her manager had visited the actress's house multiple times. This was unusual, as a manager should normally be with the actress throughout the filming process. The cameras recorded that after the incident, the manager visited the victim's house again. Members of the investigative team suspected that the manager might have gone there to erase evidence that could be detrimental to them, such as the memory card from the surveillance system. But currently, the police still lack concrete evidence. To avoid alerting the suspect, Jang Hyun requested the entire team go to the actress's house to verify if the memory card was still there. Meanwhile, she and In-soo went to the manager's house. However, the manager wasn't home and the front door was locked. To obtain evidence before the suspect returned, In-soo devised a clever plan. In-soo drove his luxury car to meet the chairman of the residential sales department. He declared his intention to buy the entire residential area. The chairman was surprised because the entire residential area was worth 120 billion won. In-soo felt relieved upon hearing this amount, thinking the price was too low. The chairman smiled and offered to show In-soo the houses. However, In-soo said he only wanted to see one house. If he liked it, he would immediately transfer 20 billion won. The chairman immediately used a master key to unlock the manager's house. When In-soo and Jang Hyun successfully broke into the house, they were extremely surprised. They discovered that the manager's house was filled with images of the victim. A wedding photo of the two of them hung on the bedroom wall. Next to it was a marriage contract that the manager had written himself. The insane images before them could only be created by a stalker. In-soo was furious and called the manager a pervert. As they were leaving, the chairman asked Frang In-soo when he would sign the contract to buy the building. In-soo found any excuse to quickly leave. Although In-soo had a lot of money, he wasn't wasteful. Jang Hyun found a USB drive in the manager's house containing several videos. They recorded the manager sneaking into the actress's house. However, these videos could only prove that he was a stalker. They weren't enough to prove he was the murderer. At this crucial moment, In-soo devised a plan to frame the manager. In-soo decided to restart filming. The next day, In-soo held a meeting as a representative of the production company. Before resuming filming, In-soo wanted everyone on set to cooperate on something important, holding a memorial service. This would help the actress's soul find peace. The service was held at the hotel where she was murdered. To make it more realistic, In-soo invited a medium. While the medium medium performed the ritual. Everyone watched intently. Suddenly, the lights in the room went out. Immediately afterward, the actress's ghost appeared. Of course, the ghost was just Jang Hyun wearing a wig and disguised as her. In-soo instructed everyone on set to pretend not to see the ghost. At this point, the manager thought he was the only one who saw the ghost. He couldn't take it anymore. The ghost crawled up to the manager. She asked why he treated her that way. In a panic, the manager confessed the truth. As In-soo predicted, the actress discovered the manager's perverted behavior through the surveillance system, so she confronted him, but the manager was still delusional about marrying the actress. However, this dream was shattered on the spot by her. From then on, the manager harbored murderous intentions. After the manager confessed his guilt, Jang Hyun immediately apprehended him on the spot. In-soo noticed that Jang Hyun was quite good at acting, so he suggested she switch to acting as a zombie actress. He even said he would invest in her. Regarding the victim being dressed in a red dress after being murdered, the manager explained that he wanted her to look beautiful to face the audience. Because her passing was the final scene in her life, In-soo asked the medium how to extinguish all the candles, but the medium said she didn't do that. Hearing this, In-soo was a little frightened. Had the ghost of the actress really appeared? When In-soo asked the medium about this, she didn't answer, but only saw through his grief over the loss of his mother. She advised him not to continue summoning the deceased's spirit, otherwise his mother's soul would not be able to rest in peace. After the case concluded, In-soo and Jang Hyun attended the actress's memorial service. There, the actor pulled Jang Hyun aside and demanded that he not reveal that he had harassed the victim, because if the matter were exposed, his acting career would be ruined. But Jang Hyun immediately refused. The second female lead slapped the actor in front of everyone, then turned her back and walked away confidently. In-soo felt admiration for the bold actions of the second female lead to escape the pain of losing her mother. In-soo had been living in a hotel for some time. Jang Hyun took In-soo home. She recalled him saying that this house held many beautiful memories between him and his mother. Jang Hyun hoped that In-soo could relive those memories and that the memories of his mother would resurface in his mind. In-soo remembered his mother's smile in those memories, and finally, he set aside the crystal ball, something he had relied on for many years. That night, In-soo had a good night's sleep after a long time. This man claimed to have the ability to see past lives. He even founded a religion because of this. It attracted wealthy people from the financial elite to become his followers. At the same time, this man also established rules. Anyone who wants to meet him must pay 1 billion won. Jang Hyun has recently been investigating this religion. A year ago, her father was falsely accused of embezzling public funds. Before her father was dismissed from his position, he investigated a case related to this religion. Jang Hyun is convinced that this religion is connected to her father's wrongful conviction. Therefore, she is determined to investigate thoroughly to clear her father's name. This religion is called the Ozon Community. Last night, the manager of the Ozon Community scheduled a meeting with Jang Hyun. He wanted to reveal the whole truth about this religion. Jang Hyun went to the meeting, but the man did not show up. The next day, Jang Hyun received news that the man had died from a fall from a high floor. She realized that the manager's departure was unusual. Even stranger was that before the officers reported the incident to the police station, he already knew the victim's identity. He even ruled out the possibility of murder without investigating. Jang Hyun believed the police chief knew the truth. Sure enough, the police chief seemed afraid of the truth being revealed. He ordered Jang Hyun to temporarily suspend her work so she could reflect on her actions. After being suspended, Jang Hyun did not give up the investigation. She obtained case files from a former colleague. Based on the files, Jang Hyun went to see the wife of the Ozon community manager, but the wife's attitude was even stranger. She adamantly refused to allow her husband's autopsy. Upon returning home, Jang Hyun found a report on a case her father handled before being dismissed. The report revealed that years earlier, at a hotel, 3 young men had ended their own lives. At the scene, a suicide note was found, specifically requesting that no autopsy be performed. All 3 victims had tattoos of a car design. Investigations revealed that these tattoos resembled the symbol of a meditation center, which is actually the Ozon community. Therefore, Jang Hyun's father concluded that these 3 who ended their own life were likely murders and were connected to the Ozon community. Jang Hyun believed the same thing, but currently, she didn't know where to begin her investigation. Feeling dejected, Jang Hyun went to a familiar place to unwind. Unexpectedly, she met In-soo there as well. After Jang Hyun was suspended from her job, In-soo wanted to know the reason and wanted to help her. However, Insu's colleagues refused to reveal any information. Unable to contain his curiosity, Insu went directly to the police chief. From there, Insu knew about Jang Hyun's father's case. Later, Insu found a video online. It was Jang Hyun's father's last press conference before his dismissal. In the conference, he expressed his doubts about the Ozun community. Unexpectedly, he was soon accused of corruption and arrested. At this point, Insu expressed his trust in Jang Hyun, just as Jang Hyun trusted her father. Insu also said that if Jang Hyun didn't know where to go, she could come to his villa anytime. Besides the case of the Ozun community manager, there was another recent case also related to this community. A man was found drowned, and he also had a tattoo of the Ozun community on his body. This man, surnamed Cha, was also a manager of this community. It seems both victims were high-ranking members of the Ozun community. Both of them ended their own lives on the same day. This made Insu suspect that something unusual was going on within the Ozun community. So Jang Hyun decided to start his investigation with the case of manager Cha. The autopsy results showed that the man had indeed died from drowning, but he didn't die in the river. In other words, the victim was murdered and then thrown into the river. However, there were no signs of forced drowning on the victim's body. The victim was a swimming instructor, so saying he died by drowning seemed illogical. A police officer obtained a video recording from the hotel where manager Cha had stayed. The recording showed a group of people chasing manager Cha on the night of the crime. The problem was that the identities of the pursuers couldn't be determined, and the police couldn't confirm whether the victim's death was related to this group. While his colleagues were confused, Insu suddenly became overjoyed and shouted that he had discovered the secret in manager Cha's suicide note. Upon closer inspection, the letter contained a hidden message: "Please perform an autopsy on me." The police took the surveillance footage and the letter to the wife of manager Jun. Her attitude remained the same as before. She was unwilling to cooperate with the investigation. She even revealed that she was also a member of the Ozun community. She believed her husband's suicide was due to some kind of sacred mission. Insu asked his butler to investigate the Ozun community. From the information gathered, Insu knew that the community's leader was very famous in the business world. To have dinner with the leader, one needed to pay 1 billion won. This astonished Insu. Even as the heir to a wealthy family, he had never experienced such a high-level service. It seems this cult leader is very skilled at deception and brainwashing. Meanwhile, to uncover the truth, Jang Hyun is undeterred by danger. She disguises herself to approach the meditation center, a place belonging to the Ozun community, used for recruiting followers. Jang Hyun pretends to be a follower. She is then assigned to a room with another woman. The center staff ask everyone to leave their phones and write down their troubles. If someone is lucky enough to be chosen, they will have the opportunity to meet the cult leader and have dinner with him. Jang Hyun tries to find out his whereabouts from other followers, but no one has any information. At night, the people at the meditation center asked everyone to write their wishes inside sky lanterns. Afterward, they would drink peaceful tea, which was said to help them sleep soundly that night. Jang Hyun had prepared in advance and pretended to drink the tea. Then she used a test strip she had hidden to check the tea's composition. Sure enough, the test strip changed color, proving that the tea contained toxins. The young woman sharing a room with Jang Hyun recounted her sad story. To repay her father's debts, she worked tirelessly. She happened to know about the existence of the sect leader, and from that, she harbored hope. As long as she could be born into a wealthy family in her next life, she wouldn't be afraid to sacrifice her life in this one. To meet the sect leader, the legendary figure who could see past lives, she even borrowed money at exorbitant interest rates. She had come 3 times, but the sect leader still refused to see her. He simply said that her sincerity wasn't enough. Jang Hyun realized it wasn't a matter of sincerity, but clearly the money the girl offered wasn't enough. That midnight, Jang Hyun saw a man driving away. This was the same man who had chased manager Jun on the night of the murder. Jang Hyun knew she couldn't hesitate any longer, so she secretly went to a nearby house. This place was believed to be the cult leader's office. Jang Hyun had collected fingerprints and installed cameras in the office to prepare for a deeper investigation. But as she was about to delve deeper into the investigation, she heard footsteps from ahead. So Jang Hyun quickly hid in the shadows. She was ready for a confrontation, but the person who arrived was Insu. He was just like Jang Hyun. He was here to investigate the mysterious cult organization, Ozun. Following the butler's directions, Insu finally arrived and met the cult leader. Unexpectedly, the cult leader was a handsome young man. Insu revealed that he was a police officer and mentioned the deaths of the 2 Ozun managers. However, the cult leader remained remarkably calm. He even recounted his legendary story to Insu. Growing up in an orphanage, he experienced poverty and coldness from others. To become wealthy, he had done all sorts of dirty and exhausting jobs. He even once participated in a multi-level marketing scheme scheme, only to be cheated and deeply in debt. In his moment of greatest despair, he was involved in a car accident. However, the accident didn't claim his life. After surviving, the cult leader claimed to have received a powerful, thunderous enlightenment. He could clearly see his 5 past lives, and from that, he founded the Ozan community. Through this, the high priest was determined to spread the insights into the theory of life and death that he had realized to ordinary people suffering like him. Insu determined that these words were just fabrications of the high priest, because founders of fake religions always have to create some supernatural stories for themselves. Unexpectedly, the high priest suddenly mentioned the death of Insu's mother, as if the high priest could truly understand everything in the world. While Insu was distracted, the high priest proactively invited him to stay for a few days. This is why Jonghyun met Insu. Here, Jonghyun was very surprised to know that Insu had met the high priest, because it was said that only when one leveled up would they have the opportunity to meet this mysterious high priest. Insu just smiled. He had been at a high level since birth. After exchanging information with Insu, Jonghyun suspected that manager Cha had met with the cult leader before his death. Just yesterday, the cult leader had requested information from newly joined followers to find a spy among them. At that moment, the female reporter decided to tear up Jonghyun's information. Jonghyun refused to leave because she was determined to bring the cult leader to justice. The female reporter chose to help Jonghyun, taking advantage of the verification opportunity. The female reporter arranged for Jonghyun and Insu to be in the same group so they could exchange information. Through a special method, Insu sent the cult leader's fingerprints out. According to the female reporter's investigation, the cult leader would give poison to some selected followers tomorrow. Jonghyun planned to infiltrate the scene to arrest the person and seize the evidence. She asked Insu to relay the plan to her colleagues. While the two were in hiding, Jang Hyun's father discovered the report on the last case he investigated. It was in Jonghyun's closet. He realized his daughter might be investigating the Ozan community. Jonghyun's father began to recall the past. At that time, he was deeply involved in investigating the Ozan community, but he was accused of corruption by his superiors. Although Jonghyun's father was an upright man, he was threatened by his superiors using his daughter's career. To protect his daughter, he was forced to compromise. To make the accusations against Jonghyun's father more credible, his superiors and the Ozan community conspired to send a package to his house. Inside, it was full of cash, and in this way, the accusations against Jonghyun's father were confirmed. At this point, Jonghyun's father once again came forward to defend his daughter. He went to the police station to ask his former subordinates who cared about Jonghyun. In addition, a reporter who was cooperating with the police came to visit. He said that his junior was posing as a spy in the Ozan community. The reporter wanted to share information with the police to save his friends. Insu's housekeeper brought the police a crucial clue. That day, Insu had taped the cult leader's fingerprints to the window. The housekeeper sent a drone to scan the fingerprints. After comparing the fingerprints, the police discovered that the cult leader was a con artist with 3 previous convictions. At the same time, the cult leader discovered traces on the followers' documents. He ordered the female reporter to be kidnapped. After Jonghyun witnessed the female reporter's abduction, she decided to act sooner than planned. That evening, Jonghyun removed her disguise. She revealed her identity as a police officer and went directly to confront the cult leader. Insu heard the news and immediately joined forces with Jonghyun to defeat the cult leader's henchmen, but they encountered a formidable opponent. Eventually, both Jonghyun and Insu were captured. At this point, the cult leader finally gave up the act. He confessed to his fraudulent activities and embezzlement. Insu bluntly called the cult leader a scoundrel. He coldly snarled and activated a switch. Insu and Jonghyun immediately fell into an underground pool. The cult leader then sealed the pool lid. Insu and Jonghyun were in grave danger. Jonghyun used a hidden knife to cut the ropes binding them. However, the water in the pool continued to gush out. If they didn't quickly find a way to escape, they would soon drown. Jonghyun thought about the drowning of manager Cha. He was certain that Cha had been drowned here. Jonghyun didn't know how to swim, so she was terrified. Insu encouraged her and taught her free diving techniques. At the same time, he tried his best to open the bottom lid of the water tank. The police were also acting quickly. Based on the exchanged messages, the police deduced that the cult leader had visited a cosmetic surgery clinic not long before. Officer Kang also went to that clinic. The doctor confirmed that the cult leader had been there and requested a complete facial transformation. The appointment was scheduled for tomorrow. Clearly, the cult leader intended to undergo cosmetic surgery to escape. According to the investigation results, the Ozan community's funds had been transferred overseas. It seems that the manager was murdered after discovering this. Officer Kang requested that the doctor notify him immediately when the cult leader arrived. Only when the police found evidence that the two managers were murdered could they arrest the cult leader. For this reason, the police went to see the wife of manager Jun. They told her that the cult leader was just a fraud. The two men asked the wife for permission to conduct an autopsy. Under police persuasion, the wife finally agreed to the autopsy. The housekeeper brought several drone photos. In these images, Jang Hyun and In Soo could be clearly seen tied up. The police immediately mobilized their forces. They even deployed a special forces team. They were determined to wipe out this evil cult organization. Because the police action was carried out without notifying the police chief, the cult leader was completely unaware. He was happily relaxing, but before the cult leader had gone far, police cars blocked his path. Facing the fully armed police force, the cult leader had no way to escape. At this moment, In Soo was unable to open the water tank lid. As the water level rose, Jang Hyun could barely hold on any longer. Fortunately, the rescue team saved the female reporter and quickly discovered a noise coming from inside the water tank. They used a gun to shoot and break the water pipe, allowing the water to drain out. Finally, In Soo and Jang Hyun were able to breathe. Jang Hyun had swallowed too much water and fainted. In the emergency, In Soo performed CPR on Jang Hyun. Ultimately, Jang Hyun was saved. By putting pressure on the cult leader, the rescue team found the switch to open the water tank lid, and finally, they successfully rescued In Soo and Jang Hyun. Colleagues brought the cult leader in front of Jang Hyun so that Jang Hyun could handcuff him himself. Jang Hyun did this in front of everyone. For Jang Hyun, this moment was truly special. After the cult leader was arrested, Jang Hyun explained to the followers the deceptive nature of the cult leader. Jang Hyun also gave her business card to the other believers in the room. Jang Hyun encouraged them to seek help from the police. Jang Hyun's parents rushed to the scene. Seeing their daughter safe, they breathed a sigh of relief. Everyone was escorted away. In Soo suddenly felt a little lonely. Fortunately, he still had his old butler who always loved him. The butler wrapped a shawl around him. This act made In Soo visibly happy. Forensic expert Choi found a memory card in the manager's stomach, but she didn't hand the evidence over to the police chief. Instead, she gave it to Chief Park, a former colleague of Jang Hyun's father. Chief Park discovered that the memory card not only contained the manager's confession of his crimes and those of the cult leader, but also a crucial video. This video shows that the person who received the bribe from the Ozone community that year wasn't Jang Hyun's father, but the police chief. At this time, the police chief was watching the news about the cult leader's arrest. The police chief was still bewildered and didn't understand anything. Chief Park arrived and arrested the police chief on corruption charges. After the case concluded, In Soo treated the team members to crispy fried pork ribs, a dish In Soo absolutely loved. The team members expressed their gratitude to In Soo because without his risk-taking, the police arrest wouldn't have gone so smoothly. That evening, while In Soo was at home, he received a phone call from his father. Chairman Jin had seen the news and knew that his son had risked his life to solve the case. During this phone call, In Soo's father finally spoke words full of love for his son. After the police chief was arrested, Chief Park suggested to his superiors that they should appoint Jang Hyun's father as the new police chief. This suggestion was accepted, and Jang Hyun's father was finally exonerated. He was allowed to wear his police uniform again. Jang Hyun presented flowers to her father, but what they would face later were even more dangerous cases. Since Soo saved Jang Hyun from the cult, their feelings for each other had grown stronger. Jang Hyun blushed with embarrassment, remembering In Soo giving her CPR. In Soo also intentionally bought hot coffee just for Jang Hyun. Meanwhile, another case occurred. In Soo arrived at the scene, but discovered that the murder had taken place at his father's house. Police determined the victim had been stabbed the previous night. Afterward, the victim drove to Chairman Jin's house, climbed over the wall, and ultimately died from his injuries. Jang Hyun questioned Chairman Jin's first wife for clues. This woman was Sungju's mother and always had a hostile attitude towards In Soo. During the police investigation, she claimed she didn't know the victim and insisted she had been home all night. Clearly, the wife was trying to deny any connection to the victim, but In Soo noticed that her demeanor was extremely hurried. It seemed she was hiding something. After Sungju received the news, he rushed back from the company. He hugged his mother to comfort her as she was distraught. Then, he looked at the police officers busy at the scene. It seemed Sungju was deep in thought. Once the victim's identity was confirmed, In Soo and Jang Hyun decided to meet the victim's wife. The wife was not surprised by her husband's death. She told the police the reason. The victim's wife said that her husband had failed many times in business. After those failures, he became addicted to gambling and often didn't come home. 6 months ago, he even disappeared without a trace. The wife suspected that her husband was definitely involved in something unethical. In Soo had already made his own judgments. Those unethical activities were likely related to the Insu family's conglomerate. This case quickly became a hot topic of discussion, and Chairman Jin and his conglomerate immediately became the focus of attention. At this time, Chairman Jin was running for mayor of Seoul, and his approval rating was higher than his opponents. Now, reporters, having knew of this hot news, immediately flocked to Chairman Jin's house. They questioned him about the relationship between the victim and Chairman Jin. Before the media, Chairman Jin appeared calm and polite, asserting that his family had no connection with the victim. But after the reporters left, Chairman Jin questioned his wife, suspecting her involvement in the case. However, his wife firmly denied it. Then, Chairman Jin turned his attention to his eldest son. He wanted to know if Sungju had any connection to the victim. Sungju denied any involvement, but clearly, Chairman Jin didn't believe that. According to data from the victim's car's dashcam, Insu discovered that before the victim was murdered, he was in the car with another man, and that man had a criminal record. Insu and Jonghyun suspected this man was the killer, so they rushed to the hotel to apprehend him. They disguised themselves as hotel staff to get the man to open the door. When the man saw the police, he tried to jump out the window to escape, but Insu warned them that they were on a high floor, and if the man jumped, he would die. Then, while the man was trying to escape, Insu kicked him so Jonghyun could catch him. But when the man realized the victim was dead, he was extremely surprised. After the man was taken to the police station, he confessed the truth. According to his statement, he and the victim both owed money to the underworld. There's a rule in the underworld that if a man can get the debtor to pay, he'll be forgiven. A few days earlier, the victim had revealed to him that he had a way to settle the debt once and for all. So, the man followed the victim up the mountain. But at that moment, a group of strangers appeared and attacked the victim. The knife wounds on the victim's body were the result of that attack. Insu relied on her intuition to confirm that the man's words were true. He didn't have the guts to kill. Indeed, the DNA found on the victim's body didn't match the man. Furthermore, the victim's call records were decoded, and the last call was not answered. Insu was astonished to discover that the last call was to Sungju. When Insu asked his brother about it, Sungju also expressed surprise that the victim had called him. He offered a possible explanation. Sungju recalled that not long before, his father had published his autobiography and held a celebration at the corporation. During the ceremony, the heirs of the wealthy families had socialized. Everyone knew that if Chairman Jin was elected mayor, Sungju would succeed him in his current position, and Sungju would become the chairman of the corporation. At that same ceremony, the victim had given Sungju his business card. Sungju said that was all that had happened, but after that, Sungju had no further contact with the victim. Insu suspected that his brother was hiding something, but Sungju frankly stated that he had never lied to his younger brother, and this time was no different. Insu nodded, showing his trust in his older brother. Although they were half-brothers, Sungju had always treated Insu sincerely. However, this time, Insu didn't expect his brother to lie. In fact, on their anniversary, after the victim gave Sungju his business card, he even requested a private meeting. The victim not only said that he had met Sungju when they were children, but he also claimed to have something important to tell Sungju. The autopsy results showed that if the victim had gone to the hospital immediately after being stabbed, he might still have had a chance of survival. But he went to Chairman Jin's house instead, and as a result, he died from excessive blood loss. It seems that for the victim, something more important than going to the hospital to save his life. Jonghyun's father, who had just taken office as the police chief, hoped to remove Insu from the investigation team. It turned out that Jonghyun's father had found a report about Insu in his daughter's drawer. It documented Insu's misconduct as a police officer. Jang Hyun's father warned that Insu was like a very dangerous time bomb, but Jang Hyun disagreed with her father's view. She wrote the report when she and Insu first met. At that time, they didn't like each other, but after working together for a long time, Jonghyun completely changed her opinion of Insu. The report was never submitted to her superiors. Jonghyun also reminded her father that without Insu, she wouldn't have been rescued from the cult. However, the truth was exactly as Jonghyun's father had said. Insu soon got into trouble. To win the election, Chairman Jin's opponent leaked information to the press. He exposed Insu's illegitimate child and his mother's death. In an instant, Insu became the focus of media attention. Faced with relentless questioning from the press, Insu appeared flustered and embarrassed. Jonghyun's mother stopped the reporters and took Insu to her daughter's car to escape. Insu couldn't help but mock himself. In reality, from childhood to adulthood, Insu had heard too much ridicule about being the illegitimate child of a wealthy family. Jonghyun gently comforted Insu. Those unaware of the truth might think Insu was a spoiled, arrogant heir, an illegitimate child who couldn't be publicly acknowledged. However, Jonghyun saw Insu as a brave and kind person, possessing incredibly valuable qualities. qualities. Just then, Chairman Jin sent a message arranging a meeting with his youngest son. He wanted to sit down and have a drink with his son, and he expressed his sincere feelings for poor Si-Fan, Su's mother. But Su didn't want to hear these words, since his mother had passed away. Expressing feelings now was meaningless. Moreover, since Chairman Jin had decided to run for mayor, he should have considered the possibility of Su being an illegitimate child being exposed. Su felt his father was always very selfish. The reporters hadn't left Su's house yet, and he didn't answer any of their questions. He still couldn't accept being an illegitimate child. After this was exposed by the media, Su's former sycophantic friends changed their attitude. They sent messages mocking Su as the result of an illicit affair. Su deleted his social media account. At this moment, only Jang Hyun and his teammates could comfort and trust Su. The team members urged Su to act with them. Just a few hours earlier, the youngest member of the team had found the suspect. Based on surveillance footage, he had discovered a car following the victim before the crime occurred. The owner of the car was also a criminal with a prior conviction. Su got into Jang Hyun's car to follow the suspect. He didn't want to let his teammates down. The team followed the suspect to a deserted area where they found him meeting with a mysterious person. Jang Hyun quickly apprehended the suspect and put him in the trunk of her car. The police found a kidnapped woman. Then, Su chased after the mysterious person as they tried to escape. But upon seeing the mysterious person's face, Su was utterly shocked because it was his own brother. Su realized that his brother might be involved in the murder, so he insisted on questioning him himself. In front of his brother, Su frankly stated that he had reviewed the surveillance footage from the anniversary celebration. Su noticed that after the victim gave Sung-ju his business card, the two had an argument. Under the protection of his lawyers, Sung-ju decided to become a reference witness, not a suspect. Sung-ju would assist the police investigation. According to Sung-ju's account, at the anniversary celebration that day, the victim not only gave his business card but also harassed his mother. To protect his mother, Sung-ju argued with the man. Later, Sung-ju knew from his mother that the man knew about her affair and had used it to threaten her. Over the years, his mother had repeatedly paid to silence him. But this time, because Chairman Jin was running for mayor, the victim started contacting the wife again. He intended to use her infidelity to blackmail her once more. According to Sung-ju, the man he had just met and the victim were accomplices. To carry out the blackmail plan, the man kidnapped the wife's best friend. To help his mother resolve the problem, Sung-ju went to meet the man. But Sung-ju didn't know why the victim died in his yard. After Sung-ju finished speaking, he looked at Su and declared that he was willing to do anything to protect his family. When the interrogation ended, the brother and Su exchanged glances. In truth, neither of them wanted to meet under such circumstances. Meanwhile, Jang Hyun was also interrogating the man who had met Sung-ju. She suspected he was the murderer, as the victim and this man had gone up the mountain together on the night of the crime. Faced with questioning, the man feigned ignorance, further convincing Jang Hyun that he was definitely involved in the case. The kidnapped woman had regained consciousness after being rescued. She also confirmed Sung-ju's testimony. According to her, the victim had constantly threatened her. This time, he demanded an excessively large sum of money, leaving her at a loss. Therefore, her close friend devised a different solution. Her friend's method was simple but brutal. Call in thugs to teach the blackmailer a lesson. The man she called was the one who had followed and met the victim on the mountain. But the lady's best friend never expected things to turn out this way. The thug didn't just stop at teaching the victim a lesson, he killed her. Because of this, the lady's best friend confronted him. Unexpectedly, the thug seemed to have uncovered an even bigger secret about the lady. He kidnapped the best friend to blackmail the lady into paying more money. After the thug was arrested, his younger brother, who was involved in the crime with him, fled abroad. Only when the thug knew his brother was safe did he reveal the truth. According to the thug, he initially intended to follow the lady's best friend's instructions, just beat the victim up. But unexpectedly, to protect himself, the victim revealed the lady's affair. He even offered to cooperate with the thug, and they would extort money from the lady together. From there, both of them could earn a large sum of money. But after the thug heard this secret, he wanted to kill the victim. Because he knew the lady's secret, he felt he didn't need to share the money with the other person. That was the reason for the victim's death. But the thug didn't know why the victim wanted to climb over the wall into the lady's house. Later, near the thug's house, the police found the weapon used used to kill the victim. From there, the identity of the killer was confirmed. Although the case seemed to be solved, Jang-hyun and In-soo were not happy. Jang-hyun suspected that Sung-ju, or the lady, might have masterminded the murder. But because they belonged to a wealthy family, they couldn't act without evidence. In-soo also suspected his brother. In fact, In-soo's suspicions weren't wrong, because Sung-ju had indeed lied. After the thug kidnapped the lady's best friend, Sung-ju paid a ransom and threatened the thug not to show up again. The thug agreed and burned a document right in front of Sung-ju. The police found some evidence in the victim's car, including several photos. In-soo noticed they were all childhood pictures of Sung-ju. Sung-ju had been secretly photographed for a long time. The back of one photo even read, "My son." This greatly surprised In-soo. Could the victim be Sung-ju's biological father? In-soo's guess was completely correct. Not long before, Sung-ju had knew the truth about his origins. In fact, the victim was the one who had an affair with the lady, and he was Sung-ju's biological father. For years, the victim had been blackmailing the lady. But this time, with Chairman Jin elected mayor, Sung-ju will succeed him as chairman of the corporation. To protect her son's future, the wife contacted friends to hire someone to deal with her son's biological father. In other words, the real mastermind behind the murder was the madam. At the time, the documents the thug burned were proof of the father-son relationship between Sung-ju and his biological father. The madam thought that if the victim disappeared forever, everything would be over. However, Sung-ju told her that hell had only just begun. In-soo went to find the madam and questioned her about whether she had ordered the murder. In-soo also clearly stated that the victim was Sung-ju's biological father. Although the madam denied these things, based on her eyes alone, In-soo knew he had guessed correctly. In-soo decided to restart the investigation, but the madam knelt down and begged In-soo, saying that once the truth was revealed, In-soo's brother would lose everything. She hoped In-soo would stop for his brother's sake. In-soo didn't respond, but went to find his brother. Although they weren't blood brothers, their feelings for each other transcended the boundaries of blood. Seeing his brother suffering alone, In-soo couldn't help but recall his childhood. When In-soo was first brought home by his father, Sung-ju had always helped and cared for him. Although this case involved In-soo's family, Jang-hyun still trusted him. She hoped he could share confidential information about the case. Unexpectedly, In-soo submitted his resignation. He wanted to thoroughly investigate the case, but once the investigation continued, Sung-ju's secret would be exposed. To protect his brother, resigning was probably In-soo's best option. But that night, In-soo accidentally discovered a loose stair railing in his house. When he opened it, In-soo found a bottle of sleeping pills hidden inside. It was the same type of pills his mother had used many years ago. As In-soo looked at the bottle, his deepest memories gradually resurfaced. In-soo still remembers that when he was little, his mother warned him not to touch this medicine because taking too much could be fatal. Because In-soo feared his mother would die, he hid the medicine in a stair railing, then put candy in an empty jar to give to her. But now, In-soo discovers that the day he opened the jar of medicine coincided with the day his mother passed away. In-soo vaguely recalls that after he gave the jar of candy to his mother, it seemed someone rang the doorbell. His mother died that day. Remembering this, In-soo went to the villa to see his father. After the man died in Chairman Jin's yard, he held a press conference and announced his withdrawal from the election. In-soo questioned his father about why he erased his mother's death from his memory. That year, he had hidden his mother's tranquilizers. This meant that on the day of the incident, his mother didn't have the medicine to use. However, the autopsy results revealed that In-soo's mother had died from an overdose of sedatives. In-soo believed his mother had been murdered and that his father was definitely hiding something. After arguing with his father at the mansion, In-soo sadly left. But shortly after he left, his father unexpectedly died mysteriously at the mansion. When In-soo received the news of his father's death, he couldn't hold back his tears. Although he still resented his father, after all, his father was Gwaith, In-soo's only remaining relative in the world. At Chairman Jin's funeral, Mrs. That Jin slapped In-soo and scolded him for killing his father. In-soo didn't retaliate. He was still immersed in grief over the loss of his loved one. Sung-ju pulled his mother away. His older brother protected In-soo as always. After the funeral, Sung-ju continued to care for his younger brother as before. In Chairman Jin's house, In-soo's room remained untouched. Sung-ju hopes In-soo will move in with him so the two brothers can be together and take care of each other. Sung-ju has no doubt about his father's death. Sung-ju believes that the pressure from participating in the mayoral election led Chairman Jin to end his own life. When In-soo returned home, he went into his father's room and looked at the belongings from the past. In-soo found a carefully preserved box containing a photograph of his mother. Behind the photograph was a handwritten note from Chairman Jin, expressing his love for her. After reading it, In-soo realized that when his mother was alive, his father had actually planned to divorce his wife. Then, Chairman Jin would move in again with In-soo and his mother, wanting to bring them happiness. In fact, Chairman Jin had said these words to In-soo many times, but because In-soo resented his father, he never believed them. Now, looking at his father's sincere handwriting, In-soo suddenly realized how he had misunderstood his father all these years. The lawyer announced Chairman Jin's will, stating his assets totaling $20 million. But In-soo didn't care about that fortune. He let his older brother handle it while he went to visit his mother's grave. In-soo wanted to know the truth about his mother's death, but he didn't know where to begin his investigation. That evening, as In-soo was about to pour himself a drink, he suddenly remembered something from the bottle in his hand. In-soo immediately arranged to meet Jang Hyun. When Jang Hyun saw that In-soo seemed unhappy, she didn't rush to hear what he had to say. Instead, she took In-soo out for a delicious meal. Afterwards, Jang Hyun patiently listened to him confide in her. In-soo revealed all his suspicions. During the crime scene investigation, police discovered sleeping pills in In-soo's father's bottle of wine. However, In-soo recalled that on the night of the incident, his father had poured him a glass of wine. If he had actually put sleeping pills in the bottle, would he really want to take his son to his death? In other words, perhaps Chairman Jin drank the sleeping pills after In-soo left the villa. In-soo had thought so, but the inscription on the photo of In-soo's mother proved that Chairman Jin wanted to start his life over. He wanted to be a good father to In-soo. Therefore, In-soo felt his father might have been murdered. Jang Hyun agreed with this view. She consulted forensic expert Choi and knew that at Chairman Jin's crime scene, the police found no sleeping pills or any traces of drugs. Besides this case, Jang Hyun was also investigating the death of In-soo's mother. Earlier, In-soo had told Jang Hyun about his suspicion that his mother might have been murdered. Jang Hyun checked the records and the results confirmed In-soo's suspicions. No sleeping pills were found at the scene of In-soo's mother's death. Therefore, Jang Hyun suspected both cases might be homicides. In-soo remembered someone knocking on his door a few hours before his mother's death, but he couldn't recall who it was. Following Chairman Jin's sudden death, the company's stock became unstable. To stabilize the situation, shareholders hoped Sung-ju would soon take over the chairmanship. This was also recorded in Chairman Jin's will. However, the butler knew from the lawyer that on the day of Chairman Jin's death, he had consulted a lawyer to amend the will. This made the butler wary. The butler recalled that a few days before Chairman Jin's death, he had told the butler that he would not let Sung-ju succeed him as chairman. While the butler was pondering this, Jang Hyun called to ask if Chairman Jin had a habit of using sleeping pills. After Jang Hyun received a negative answer from the housekeeper, she became even more certain of her judgment. The police inspected the villa where Chairman Jin died and confirmed that there were no surveillance cameras inside or outside the villa. The only people who knew this could be those who were intimately familiar with the villa and were closest to Chairman Jin. Jang Hyun analyzed that 25 years ago, Chairman Jin had planned to divorce to live with his mother, In-soo. From a self-serving perspective, the biggest beneficiary of In-soo's mother's death was clearly his wife, and now, the biggest beneficiary of Chairman Jin's death is Sung-ju. With Chairman Jin gone, Sung-ju would have the opportunity to succeed him as chairman. Furthermore, Sung-ju and his mother were the ones who knew the villa best. Therefore, they both had the motive and the means to commit the crime. On the other hand, In-soo went to the detention center to see the psychiatrist who was being held there. In-soo asked this person to perform hypnosis on him. After being hypnotized, In-soo recalled past events. A few hours before his mother's death, the person who knocked on his door was his mother's wife. Therefore, she became the prime suspect. In-soo shared his suspicions with the housekeeper, who also revealed secrets he knew. It turned out that even before Chairman Jin got married, he knew his wife was in love with another man. Furthermore, Chairman Jin knew that the child in his wife's womb was not his, but at that time, he needed a marriage based on mutual benefit. However, when Chairman Jin met In-soo's mother, he fell in love with her and decided to take care of In-soo. Because In-soo was Chairman Jin's real son, this led to Chairman Jin's decision to divorce. In-soo suspected that the madam might be the culprit in both cases. In-soo asked the housekeeper to keep an eye on the madam. In-soo wanted to know the madam's whereabouts on the night his father died. Jang Hyun was also investigating this. Her team investigated the housekeeper at Chairman Jin's house. The housekeeper confirmed that both the madam and Sung-ju were present at the house on the night of the murders. But shortly afterward, the housekeeper informed the madam that the police had come to question her. When the madam heard about the police investigation, she became worried. Clearly, the housekeeper had lied to the police on the madam's instructions. Sure enough, the surveillance camera detected a car leaving the Butch mansion on the night Chairman Jin passed away. The camera could identify the license plate, but it didn't show the person inside. To clarify the matter, Jang Hyun asked the butler for help. The butler went to the garage and discovered that the car belonged to Sung-ju. To confirm, the butler deliberately drove his car into Sungju's car. Afterwards, the butler took advantage of the opportunity to repair the car to find the memory card inside the black box. Unfortunately, Sungju acted very carefully, and the memory card disappeared from the car. Although the butler didn't find any evidence, this only increased Jonghyun's suspicion of Sungju. That evening, In-soo arranged to meet his brother. Sungju spoke sincerely, hoping In-soo would return to help him manage the corporation. In-soo also cherished the relationship between him and his brother. At the same time, he also expressed his suspicions towards the madam. In-soo also hinted that if he later found evidence related to her, he hoped Sungju wouldn't blame him. After meeting In-soo, Sungju went to the hospital to visit his mother. She said that on the night her husband died, she witnessed her son leaving the house. Moreover, her bottle of tranquilizers was suddenly empty. The madam suspected her son had killed Chairman Jin, so she subtly questioned him about it. Unexpectedly, Sungju frankly confessed his guilt. He had put tranquilizers in the wine to kill his father. Over the years, Sungju had always appeared gentle, but the truth was different. Under the education and influence of the madam, Sungju had learned an important principle: to spare no expense to become the master of the corporation. After Sungju revealed the truth, he reminded his mother that she should pretend not to know anything and continue living as normal. After leaving the hospital, Sungju recalled the events of the night his father died. Previously, to ensure Sungju's smooth succession to the corporation, his mother had ruthlessly ordered a murder. Sungju, in turn, helped his mother conceal the evidence. However, when Chairman Jin discovered the truth, he decided to amend his will. On the night of the murder, Sungju went to the mansion and knelt down, begging his father not to abandon him. But Chairman Jin had made up his mind. Driven by his desire to control the corporation, Sungju heartlessly killed his father. After Chairman Jin's death, Sungju inherited the corporation as he wished. During his inauguration ceremony, Sungju confidently stood under the spotlight. Below the stage, In-soo stared at his brother like prey. In-soo suspected his parents' deaths were connected to his mother. But on the night Chairman Jin died, Sungju secretly drove away. Although the lady had a driver's license, she didn't know how to drive. Therefore, Jonghyun and his colleagues focused all their suspicions on Sungju. However, In-soo didn't want to believe it because Sungju had always been kind to him. Sungju was the only one who brought warmth to In-soo after his mother's death. But very quickly, the truth slapped In-soo hard. In-soo contacted the driver who had driven the lady for many years. According to the driver's recollection, on the night In-soo's mother died, the lady did indeed drive to In-soo's house, but she returned home shortly after, and after that, she didn't leave the house again. But a few hours later, Sungju went out on his own without a driver. Sungju even had an accident on his way home. Hearing this, In-soo had a bad feeling. He then asked Jonghyun to help investigate. In-soo hoped to find the location of Sungju's accident that year. Jonghyun found the location. It was the house where In-soo had lived with his mother when he was a child. At this point, In-soo began to doubt his older brother, the one he trusted most. That day, Sungju attended the inauguration ceremony of the corporation and successfully became its chairman. After the meeting, In-soo directly asked his brother if he had met In-soo's mother on the day of the crime many years ago. Sungju hesitated for a moment upon hearing this question. Then, Sungju firmly denied it and declared that the past was over. Sungju hoped to lead the corporation to greater success with In-soo, but In-soo interrupted his brother. Now, he only cared about the truth regarding the deaths of his parents. Recently, Jonghyun's father was also reviewing the old case files and discovered an overlooked clue. It turned out that at the scene of In-soo's mother's murder, the police had collected 2 fingerprints belonging to a child. However, at that time, children's information hadn't been entered into the identity system, so this detail wasn't given much attention. But now, after the police checked, they discovered that these 2 fingerprints actually belonged to Sungju. Although In-soo had suspicions about his brother, he couldn't help but be surprised when he saw the fingerprint comparison report. In-soo wouldn't forget his brother's kindness over the years. To get to the bottom of things, In-soo stole Jonghyun's gun and then called his brother to come to his house. That evening, Sungju arrived as promised. In-soo frankly expressed his suspicions. In-soo asks his brother if he's the one who killed their mother. Sungju thinks In-soo is playing a trick, so he turns to leave. But this time, In-soo points a gun at the person he trusted most. At this moment, the worst memories flood Sungju's mind. When Sungju was young, his father fell in love with someone else and wanted to divorce his wife. So, his mother drank alcohol every day to forget her sadness. She even took out a bunch of sleeping pills to protect his mother. That night, Seungju took a large handful of pills. He found his parents' divorce papers and Insu's mother's address. Then, Seungju secretly went there alone. When Seungju arrived at Insu's house, he was soaked from the heavy rain. Insu's mother kindly gave Seungju a glass of fruit juice. She also promised not to marry Chairman Jin. Just as Seungju felt relieved hearing this, he unexpectedly received a text message from Insu's mother's phone. Chairman Jin said he was ready. If Insu's mother said she wanted a divorce, he would divorce immediately. Seungju, fearing his father would be taken away, secretly put Insu's mother's drink. Then, she brought out a bowl of cooked noodles. Seungju ate the noodles and secretly watched her drink. When Insu's mother collapsed and couldn't get up, Seungju dragged her into the bathroom. He left her in the bathtub and quickly left the scene. In his hasty escape, Seungju was involved in a car accident. Now with clear evidence, Seungju confessed to killing Insu's mother. Seungju regretted not killing Insu as well. When the truth about the past was revealed, Insu burst into tears. Seungju took advantage of the opportunity to knock Insu's gun out of her hand. Then, Seungju attacked Insu again. The two brothers fought fiercely. Seungju sat on Insu and relentlessly punched and kicked her. If it weren't for Insu's appearance, perhaps this series of tragedies wouldn't have happened. Insu counterattacked and knocked his brother to the ground. Insu was curious why the other party was being kind to him. Seungju only laughed contemptuously and said that he was only being kind because he felt sorry for Insu. This statement deeply wounded Insu's heart. Insu was determined to take everything Seungju had. Seungju picked up a gun from the ground and aimed it at Insu. Seungju mocked his younger brother for being delusional. Insu's mother's case had passed the prosecution deadline, and their father's case never had any evidence. In this moment, Insu revealed the truth. Their father had known all along that Seungju was someone else's child, but he still treated Seungju as his own son. Yet Seungju was completely unaware of this. To seize the corporation, he ruthlessly murdered his father. Seungju was stunned by this, and the gun fell to the ground. Jang Hyun arrived just in time and arrested Seungju. The truth about Insu's mother's case was revealed. Although the statute of limitations for prosecution had expired, Jang Hyun still disclosed the truth to the press. Seungju also confessed to the crime of murdering his father and was sentenced to life imprisonment. Everything came to an end. That day, Insu visited his father's grave. He offered his father a glass of wine. Then, he placed a necklace next to his mother's memorial tablet. This was a gift his father had prepared but could never give her. Insu believed that his parents had reunited in the afterlife. After visiting his relatives, Insu returned to the house where he used to live to retrieve his belongings. There, he coincidentally met Jang Hyun's mother. She invited Insu into her house for a meal and cooked him a bowl of noodles. Seeing the bowl of noodles, Insu was reminded of his mother. After Jang Hyun's mother saw the news and knew that Seungju was the murderer, she patted Insu on the back. She wanted to thank Insu for not letting the pain overwhelm him. Hearing the comforting words of the adults, Insu couldn't hold back his tears. With the passing of Chairman Jin and Seungju's imprisonment, the company was left without a leader. Therefore, Insu returned to the company to take on the responsibility. His colleagues at the police station felt strange not seeing Insu. Occasionally, they would look towards Insu's desk and remember the days when he was there. After a few days of Insu's absence, Jang Hyun realized it was time to accept his departure. She looked at Insu's desk and reminisced about the time when they disliked each other to when they became close friends. Insu's naivety had changed how Jang Hyun saw him. She ordered Insu's workspace to be cleaned. Then she took out the resignation letter he had submitted earlier and prepared to submit it to his superiors. But before Jang Hyun could leave the office, Insu unexpectedly appeared. He decided to return to work at the police station. Insu had handed over the company to a more suitable leader, the butler. As soon as Insu returned to work, he received a call reporting a crime. Everyone left the police station and headed to the crime scene. That's all for today's episode. See you in the next videos.